Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. It's Do You Expect to Talk annual review. We tend to be doing these for the past, I don't know, was it 3 years now? Three?
Well, we used to do like summer ones, didn't we? And then
Yeah,
we threw in the odd winter one because the summer ones were getting so long. And then sort of we pushed it over to this label because we used to do that under Cinematronics, and we've done it all three of us for 2 or 3 years. Yeah,
yeah, just as an extra sort of Happy New
yeah.
Year. And it's always nice to sort of actually talk about not like non films that are in like a series that we're doing.
Mm.
It's nice to have a sort of like a catch up. I think we kind of it's nice to have a sort of a catch up between ourselves because we don't always talk about new films that come out as well. So
No,
it's
I mean we chat over sort of Messenger a lot, but actually, and occasionally you'll get I saw that tonight, and we'll chat about it a bit. But most of our not face to face because we're not face to face, but most of our sort of online conversation, we just literally get on, chat for a bit, and then
mm,
record the film, don't we? So
yeah,
yeah,
Especially if there's been a film in a series that we covered before, like or if there's a new Marvel movie out or a new Planet of the Apes movie out, and we'll cover it. So
yeah.
well,
So
we'll
like
have
for
one or
example,
two this year
like
coming.
the Beverly Hills Cop film,
yeah,
Yeah,
like that. I don't think we'll be talking about much because we reviewed it. But
yeah, absolutely. And
uh,
I mean,
yes. Happy New Year! Welcome to 2025, and this is our review of 2024.
oh, that's good. I thought we were going to review 2025, which is extremely premature.
Well,
'Cause all I've seen so far is 2019's Cold Pursuit and Back to the Future 3.
oh,
So
I saw
don't think-
Nosferatu. I went
yeah,
to
but
review that the other
I'm
day.
seeing that on Sunday. So I was meant to see it last night, but I didn't. I'm seeing it Sunday, and then I'm seeing Maria in the week after that.
Oh,
But I think just one thing personally, what I would say, and I knew this was going to come when it happened, is we had a writer's strike in, I think it was late 2022. I can't remember how long it ran for now. And I remember thinking, because the 2007 writer's strike really affected 2009 films. Even half decent films, you could see like little flaws in it that you go, they'd iron that out in another pass. Um, just think if it, I mean, I know it was 2008, but it was right at the end of Quantum of Solace. The problem there was he couldn't rewrite things that weren't working, and there are plot threads that don't get followed up on, and it went all the way through 2009, and that's going a long way round to say that I think this has been the thinnest year for a while. Um, that doesn't mean there haven't been great films, but I think I'll say up front, I've seen more than enough to fill a show with, but I've seen fewer films than a lot of other years, and a lot of things have either been cancelled or pushed back. And then you've got things like Marvel, where partly because of the writer's strike and partly because I think they realised they were running up the wrong alley. They literally released one film last year. Um, you know,
yeah, I thought it was a bit of an. I was thinking this. I was thinking this doesn't seem like. I was going through like the things that I'm not seeing like as much big hitters this year, and I thought, is it me? Am I forgetting stuff? Am I missing stuff? I mean, or is it just mostly like Pixar sort of like animation type sort of films?
and a lot of
yeah,
them
there haven't really been like the big tentpole movies like that we used to.
I've just looked at my list, and some of them I barely remember seeing as well, which doesn't bode well. But I will just be
Mm,
upfront and say, well, I know I saw it. Clearly, I saw it, but I don't really remember very much about it. And that's happened with a few things. In fact, there's one or two here that I only remember the title, and I'm going to have to look up as we go along. But there you go.
so this is going to be a
Yeah, I sort of
riveting.
created to go with your list, your Excel spreadsheet. I tentatively use Letterbox. Not to kind of like create a diary, but I do create a lot of lists. And so I do like list, at the cinema 2024 list of what we're covering on Day to Talk, and list of films like we do at a film club that I'm on the committee for example. So I try to keep a list there, and yeah, and it seems to obviously the last couple of years there's been a trend for having like classic films or films that receive an anniversary re-release back in cinemas as well. I think it's just the ploy to kind of following the pandemic and a dip in cinema attendance. It's just trying to get bums back on seats, trying to get people
Yeah.
through the door.
I am wondering what the committee for a film club does. It's like all in favour of enjoying this. Say aye. Hey, carried. We like this.
Well, it used to happen a bit like that, really, to be honest. But yeah, it's quite interesting. If you read, there's a couple of Monica Dickens books. I think one is called My Turn to Make the Tea, and the other is, I think it's called one pair of hands, one pair of feet. It's about her time as a nurse. But anyway, yeah, if you read Monica Dickens, My Turn to Make the Tea, that's kind of really insightful in terms of like what it's like being a committee member or a small organisation. Mind you, it was kind of 50s, 60s, 70s, so a bit dated now. But it gives you an insight. No, it's really interesting. Basically, we used to kind of vote. But in the good old days, the club's been running for well over 10 years now. We used to have like a wealth of films to choose from. So the committee would choose a list of 6 movies that are available to us, and then we then whittle that down to about 3, which we then send out to our vast membership to vote on. So my job was to count all the votes, but obviously since the pandemic, that pool has really kind of shrunk quite a bit. We lost members through non-attendance, but also like the pool of films open to us has shrunk as well, unfortunately. So like recently we had a situation where like obviously we're beholden to what our cinema that host us. They say what we can and can't show. Obviously, if it's something they've shown before, then it's not going to be put on our list. We had a list of 6, and they went, no, can't show any of those. So we had to come up with a new list of 6. And so obviously, we don't have the voting component anymore. So I'm essentially jobless at the moment, just helping out on the door on film nights. But yeah, typically we would vote on the film, what we would show. And then, but it's really interesting, actually. So without going into it too much.
If you'd like Becca for after dinner speaking, write to us and expect us to talk
Don't
at
do that.
gmail.com.
Don't do that.
You could tell that same story, but with some dick jokes and maybe a car chase.
To make it more interesting.
There you go.
It's very, very boring. But yeah, I recommend Monica Dickens. My Turn to Make the Tea.
Okay. We haven't seen each other's lists, if in fact all of us have lists. So I think I'll start with naming a couple of films, because I think the first one we may have talked about on the last
yours, Dave. I'll show you mine.
Okay. And after that, we're doing a podcast. Well, the first one I've got listed is Saltburn, but I have a feeling...
I think we talked about it last year.
We talked about it because I saw it at the end of last year as well. I think I've listed 2 screenings for it, so we don't need to talk about that. But anyone who missed last year's show, I think I was really positive about it. I liked it.
I enjoyed it as well. I know a lot of people said it was like style over substance, but I was like, well, that's the best thing about it.
Nothing wrong with style over substance sometimes. What I will the next one I will mention.
Nothing wrong with spunk soup.
Oh yeah, that was it was a proper gross out moment. Well, like two gross out moments.
I mean, I still haven't seen it. I'm kind of a bit like, I'm not sure I want to.
I think you'd enjoy it, Chris. I think you'd enjoy it, particularly divorced from, I say hype because it got most of its sort of exposure on streaming. So by definition, that's not huge hype and marketing budget. But obviously it was much talked about. And it's one of those films that you could watch at the time and go, thinks it's cleverer than it is. It's trying too hard. 12 months on from that, if you just throw it on as something to watch, I think you might enjoy it.
I probably don't watch it with parents or grandparents, so I would probably advise.
Well, I'd struggle to watch it with my grandparents, to be fair.
Same.
And one of my parents, to be fair. The first theatrical release I want to mention, and I think it's because it was released on the 2nd of January, is One Life.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, so back in the 1980s, That's Life was a big thing on television. And it was a very strange show. If you launched it now, you'd struggle to market it. It was like the daytime TV version of Private Eye on TV. And what I mean by that is, if you pick up a copy of Private Eye, it's this strange mix of comedy and investigative journalism. And although
it was kind of like proto magazine show for its time, wasn't it? That format was still quite new back in the day.
It was a little bit This Morning, but it was also a little bit Watchdog.
Yeah.
And a little bit like, the last bit on the sort of news. And finally, that sort of item. It was partly that as well. And it was presented by Esther Ranson. And there was an episode I was watching live because my parents liked it. I say live. I don't know that it went out live, but as it aired the first time. And I think I was about 11 or 12 when this came out. And it was a guy whose name I've completely forgotten, but he saved...
Nicholas Winton.
Nicholas Winton. And he saved a load of people in the war. And he wouldn't talk about it.
He was basically kind of dubbed the British Oscar Schindler, really, wasn't he?
Yeah,
helping to save the lives of millions of Jews and bring them over here to England.
Yeah, and he was sat in the audience. I think he was in the audience twice. I only remember the second one, the sort of the throat, lump in your throat moment, where a load of the people he'd saved were sat around him in the audience, and he had absolutely no idea as adults. So if it was in wartime, they were at this point between about 45 and 50. But it was an Anthony Hopkins film. Anthony Hopkins plays all the sort of present day version of him, and then there's flashbacks to what he did in the war, and there's an enormous amount of self-effacement in it, in that he never really wanted to talk about what he'd done.
No, it was only about later in his life, really, wasn't it? He did the job, and then kind of that was it, really. He did his duty, and you kind of get the sense that he was incredibly reluctant to really talk about it, and the fact that he was seen as a hero and sort of a savior to these people, he was really kind of wanting to shun that kind of limelight, as it were. And there's that famous moment where it's like, if you were saved by Nicky Winton, stand up, and it turned out like they were all in the audience. And so
and it was moving at the time. As a kid, I cried at it.
Have a tissue ready.
It's done very well in the film. The only thing is, they cast Samantha Spiro as Esther Ransom, which is the most spectacular miscast I've ever seen.
Yeah, that threw me out a little bit. I was like, well, who are they going to play Esther Ransom? And she's a really good actress.
Last night. She was in there's a thing just launched on Netflix now. I'm aware in our last episode I shout on Netflix quite a lot, but my wife was watching something that's just launched on it with a woman from one of the women from Slow Horses in it, and she was in an episode of that, and she said I recognised her, and I said, well, you've seen her as Esther Ransom in this.
Oh, well, yeah.
But One Life is it's sort of emotionally manipulative, but in a way I think you'd forgive quite quickly.
But the ending's quite poignant as well, isn't it? It's one of those, like, if it comes on TV, it would be kind of like a Sunday afternoon, but and plus because it came out at the beginning of the year, you kind of worried that it's going to sort of be forgotten, or kind of also running towards the Oscar races, things like that, for example.
But it's also a reminder. I mean, obviously he did The Father a few years ago, which was even better, but Anthony Hopkins is still special when he's engaged.
He's still a real powerhouse.
When he's not, he's terrible. When he's not, he's I do want to just, as an aside, this will date the episode. I don't know if we've got any listeners in Southern California, but I just want to send, I know we've got some all over America. Just want to send my condolences. The thing that made me think of that is Anthony Hopkins is one of the ones that's just lost his house.
Yeah,
so
unfortunately.
Our warmest regards and thoughts for any of you affected, or friends or family.
Out to everybody who's affected by the whole wildfires, and also the first responders on the scene, battling the flames as well.
Yeah, and you always hate to see that, because not only the risk to life, but we know inhaling all this stuff is not good for you years later. So thoughts with you. The next one I just want to mention, and I say jump in with ones as you feel like it. This is a last year film in that I think it was a Boxing Day release in cinemas, but then it immediately went on to Sky Movies, and that's the Ferrari film.
Oh, I didn't see that, but I wanted to see it.
This is, what's his name? Kylo Ren.
Oh yeah,
Adam Driver.
Driver.
And a film about Formula One.
Again, it's not really about. In fact, it's not about Formula One at all in its way.
Ferrari, even, sorry.
It's about Ferrari, but it's only a couple of years of his life now. The current, he had an illegitimate son who could not take his name, i.e. his surname, until Ferrari's wife passed away, which happened in, I think, the late 70s. That is, why am I struggling with the names tonight? Vicky Cristina Barcelona, Vanilla Sky, Penelope Cruz. She plays his wife in it. Adam Driver's way too young to play him from this era, but it works really well, and it's historically reasonably accurate. They've used the proper Ferrari factories, the Fiorano tracks. They've got hold of some of the old cars, made them look beautiful, and actually the main thrust of it in racing terms is the Mille Miglia. Now, I don't know if they do this race anymore. If they do, they probably do it with but think of professional racing drivers, but the Cannonball Run in Italy. they basically do it.
There's a celebrity TV chef who's also into cars. I want to say James Martin, but it might not be James Martin.
James Martin is into cars because Barbara Broccoli once bought him an Aston Martin.
Oh yes, so it is. Yeah, and I think he did.
Although talking about celebrity racing drivers. That guy from Grey's Anatomy, Patrick, is in it. He's a racing driver in real life, and he's in the film. But the Mille Miglia was once won by Sterling Moss. All the top drivers took part in it, and it's a major thing. But in the year of this, Ferrari did have a massive crash. Now, it's a slight spoiler for the film, because the guy who's killed in this crash, it's a real incident. You can look it up. It killed a load of bystanders because they're driving down public roads and people would come out of their house to watch. This car had a blowout and just killed a load of people in the crowd, including children.
That's like safety measures probably weren't what they would be now.
But they weren't at all. Safety measures literally didn't start at all in racing until like the likes of Jackie Stewart came along like 10, 15 years later, where they start. And even then it was just things like Armco barriers and first responders and stuff. But the guy who plays the guy killed in this film, who was one of Ferrari's drivers, and I've forgotten his name now, also played Ayrton Senna in the current Netflix show, Senna, which launched in November, which is it is so far, because it's done with the Senna family, it's so far up Senna's ass, it's almost embarrassing, but it is a very good recreation of the time. But yeah, Ferrari is a really good film with a really good cast. And I really did enjoy that. It's on sort of Sky Movies in this country, but it did get a cinema release.
I think if it's the same one that I'm thinking of, I think Kermode, not sort of trust it as such, but derided all the outrageous accents, but probably not.
Well, it is one of those where they're all in Italy talking in English, but you just like let that go, don't you? I mean, it's you know, it's not What a Mistake of the Maker or anything. But yeah, it's very beautifully shot. It's a Michael Mann film, and the thing with Michael Mann is all his films are beautiful. Quite often they're a shade too long for me. Most of these films that I even like are a bit too long, and a case in point to me is he managed to make a boring film about Muhammad Ali, and I don't know how you do that. Like I've never made a film in my life, but I could entertain you with a tale about him. But
is he in that sort of docu kind of like?
No, it is a film. You do get there's points where they're watching TV and you get recreations and things like that of things. But yeah, the Mille Miglia means you see quite a lot of Italy as well, because they drive. It's 1,000 miles, Mille Miglia. 1,000 miles.
Literally.
And yeah,
beautiful sort of period costumes as well.
Patrick Dempsey he's in it. And again, another little spoiler, he's playing the driver who won that year's Mille Miglia. And it only really covers like 56, 57. Ferrari are in trouble. He's trying to do a deal with Ford to come in with him because he needs money, because he wants to sell cars only to fund racing. That is his first priority, racing. But he needs to sell cars. But Ferrari, he also wants to be exclusive, so he only sells a couple hundred a year. They're trying to get him to make more and sell more, and he's in financial difficulty. He's sort of estranged from his wife, but because it's a Catholic country, they're keeping up pretenses. Because he's having an affair with Shailene Woodley, plays the character he had an affair with, which started during the war, which went now about 10 years. And he has a son with her, Pietro, I think it is. And he is Pietro Ferrari now, and you can see him. Now, what this story is getting at, it doesn't come to any conclusion on funding, but of course it eventually ended up with the Agnelli and the Fiat family buying in. And that's still the case today. The Agnelli family own a good percentage of Ferrari Fiat, so that's worth seeing. And I don't think you need to be a racing fan, but it does. There's a couple of crashes in it that aren't overdone, but they are quite realistic, and they show you what racing was like in the era. Very, very dangerous.
There's a couple of films I'd like to talk about, if that's okay.
Sure, go on.
Well, kicking off, I think it came out at the tail end of 2023, but it came out sort of January, February time over here in the UK in 24, is The Holdovers, the sort of Christmas film that isn't really a Christmas film.
Next one on my list.
Yeah, the new Alexander Payne film. Yeah, it's really, really good. We screened it in July for our summer film at the film club that I attend. To rave reviews, really good. Yeah, wonderful performances. Even though it's kind of like set around the Christmas and winter holidays, the fact that we screened it in July.
For Christmas weekend at Bernie's?
Well, yeah, pretty much. But no, we thought, well, even though it's obviously we screened it as kind of our summer film, it's because even though it was kind of set around the holidays, it's not necessarily a Christmas film, although it can be as well. You can put it in both camps. And also, like at the film club as well, we tend to err on the artsy side, and we rarely show comedy. So everyone was like, oh, come on, it's been a miserable couple of years, show a funny film. So we showed this, and it went down an absolute treat. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Great performances. Paul Giamatti is just fantastic, whatever he does. And he's a fairly unlikable character. But his comic timing is just really impeccable and gets on really well with his young cast as well. And the other film I'd like to mention, again, I think it came out quite late, 2023, but also came out here maybe sort of January, February time. 24 was All of Us Strangers.
Not seen that.
Really, really beautiful. It's one of those films. Again, we showed it at the film club, but I could not. I saw it kind of twice in a row, and I thought, well, I couldn't. It's one of those films you kind of really have to prepare yourself for emotionally before going to see it. But yeah, directed by Andrew Hay, with Andrew Scott and Paul Mescal as well, and sort of one of his kind of breakout roles really. It's really kind of poignant, quite sad but quite tender. And there's also a little bit of kind of sci-fi time travel involved as well, based on a book which unfortunately I've not read, but I'm keen to see it. But yes, it's just really incredible sort of like tender, really touching love story, infused with kind of like his 1980s kind of like pop synth setting as well. But yeah, it's probably one of the most beautifully shot films, beautifully made films of last year. So that's just a couple that I'd like to kind of draw attention to that came out in the first part of the year.
Well, I've only seen one of those. I will just chime in on the holdovers. I won't say a lot because I think I may have mentioned it on another show that we did. And again, we've got an awful lot to go through, but all I would say was stick with it because it's quite slow starting. Paul Giamatti,
it's very much a slow burn.
He plays such a sort of unkempt character that he's almost off-putting, in that you can feel like you can smell his bad breath and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's not like the most appealing, is he?
No,
he's proper
but
like curmudgeon character.
Divine, halfway through the film, literally about halfway through the film, I thought, if Divine Joy Randolph doesn't win the Academy Award for this, I'll be stunned. And she did.
She did, yes.
It's a terrific film. It's set in the 70s. It looks like it's set in the early 70s. And it's basically about a boarding school kicks out for Christmas. It's all rich kids, but with rich kids come rich parents, some of them on second wives and going off to Monaco and shit like that. And the holdovers are the people that are stuck there for Christmas. And it tends to be the teacher without a family that has to just stay and look after them. And you've got Divine Joy Randolph as like, I guess she's like works in the kitchen there, and she stays around because she lost a boy in Vietnam and she's got no family, so she stays to look after the kids as well. And there's a handful of them, and it's a slow burn, but not a super slow burn. I don't think I was bored at any point, but certainly for a period of time you're like, I'm not sure of the point of this, and then you actually find what a really lovable film it is.
Yeah, it's one of those ones you really do have to stick with it, really, because I kind of thought, I'm not quite sure, but actually, yeah, the performances, really sort of stand out, and plus it's quite long. It's like two and a bit hours, I think.
It's about 2.25, I think.
Yeah, so you do have to kind of stick with it, and it's well worth the payoff as well. So, but yeah,
Chris,
it's one of
any
those things.
thoughts on any of these? Have you seen any?
I haven't seen it. Is it Holdovers that a bit more like a comedy? It's Alexander Payne, isn't it? So I can kind of imagine it's that kind of.
Is it like drama?
I would say it's black comedy.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not laugh out.
Oh yeah, like a dramedy.
Dramedy, that's the word. Yeah, I just said that.
I would say so. It's like it is. He's like Wes Anderson, but without the occasionally annoying quirkiness.
Yeah.
I really liked it. I've got a couple more from sort of last year, if you like, but I saw this year. I'm going to skip a couple because we were still doing Set the Tape at the start of the year, and I was still getting the odd screener that like no one will have seen one or two of these, so there's not a lot of point. I do want to refer. I'll come back to Poor Things in a minute, but
if they were the Studio Canal ones, I probably would have seen them.
No, this one's called Dress Code, but it's kind of a trans story, but and about being yourself. But I've not much to say about it other than I enjoyed it. But I want to move on very quickly to Society of the Snow.
Ooh. Yeah, it's one I wanted to try and see, but I missed it.
This is J.A. Bayona. It's the same story as told in the 93 film Alive.
Ah.
It's about although that was an American film, this is kind of in the Spanish language. This is the Uruguayan rugby team. They crash in 1972 in the Andes Mountains. And the cast is all sort of Uruguayan and Argentine actors. Most of them have been in nothing. And it just shows you them sort of, how they deal with this, how they stay alive and everything else. Yes, you've got there is obviously cannibalism, but it's played down a little bit more than in Alive. It had that American, my God, they're cannibals. And it's a part of this film. It's something they have to do. at one point, and it's actually more about how they work together to sort of stay alive. And it was nominated for Best International Picture at the Oscars, and it was very good. It didn't win, but obviously
is it as good as Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom, though? That's the real question.
It's Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. I mean, if you hadn't seen he'd done other things, you'd go, "What the fuck?" But and he did Rings of Power, which ain't very good either.
The Monster Calls was I really liked.
Yeah,
I remember that was quite.
And and The Impossible was all right, and The Orphanage. He's not an all bad filmmaker, but what I would say, what he has is name recognition. He's actually the sort of person who I would expect Netflix to approach. But what he's done here is actually very good. Because of the films I saw this year, a lot of them were forgettable, and this wasn't. I remember quite a bit about it right now. And then the last thing, I can't remember if it was released in January or December, but Poor Things.
Yeah, I was going to mention that actually. I need to see it. Excuse me. I need to work up the courage to be able to watch it. As a director, I think I've seen most of his other work. At the moment, my favourite is probably like The Favourite, also The Lobster as well, which is probably one of his more accessible type films. But to me, he's one of those directors. He's very singular.
The Lobster as accessible. That's not really saying much, is it?
No, it's like saying like Nosferatu is perhaps one of Robert Eggers' more accessible films, perhaps more mainstream. Perhaps, I don't know, because he's one of those directors where he's got a very singular vision.
It's quirkier than The Favourite. I think on a single viewing, if I'd only ever watched, because I rewatched The Favourite before I saw it with my wife, who loved it, and then saw Poor Things, and I think probably preferred that. It's a cigarette paper between them. They're different. They feel like the same filmmaker. Right down to he's very fond of these fisheye lenses, and you saw a lot of them in The Favourite.
Quite a lot.
Yeah, so there's a lot of that here. It's quirkier. It's a very, when you consider Emma Stone is at least on the borderline of an A-lister, filming this sort of stuff is quite brave. It's all right if you're B or C. It's all right if you're Mila Jovovich or something. You can do the sort of
when you're a mainstream star, I think something like that could, has the potential to damage your career.
But, I mean, she's done another film with him since, which we'll cover in next year's review because I haven't seen it yet, and it's only just come out. In fact, actually, it did come out a couple of months ago, didn't it? So it would have been in last year's, but I've not seen it yet. The one she's just done with him that's released on Disney Plus. But yeah, it's worth seeing. That's all I would say. If you like any of his work, I can't see that you'll hate this. And it's a big, broad story. It's very, very ambitious. And to watch her, do you know, it's almost like Still Alice in reverse. I always remember seeing the Julianne Moore film Still Alice, where she had young onset dementia.
Oh yeah, that kind of packed a punch, didn't it, that film?
There is a bit in that film where she's already declined a little, and she does a video for herself, like on her laptop. And you forget all about that, and you see her sort of decline fairly linearly, and from one scene to the next, you can barely tell a difference. And an hour later, you see that video again, and the difference is phenomenal that she's essayed in that sort of hour of film. And Emma Stone is doing this in reverse. She starts the film as basically a toddler and ends up as a fairly mature borderline genius. And the way she progresses from one to another with no shame at all, because she's basically going through, she's basically got a woman's body with an adult's mind. So she's got she's got an adult sex drive in what is mentally a child. Yeah, she's effectively
this creation, isn't she? Yeah. And you kind of see the evolution, I guess.
But I did like
spoiler alert for any films that came out last year.
That kind of thing, though, kind of puts me off. It makes me feel like this is a little bit. I don't know. I get there's probably other artistic things going on there, but I'm like, that's a little bit dodgy. That
maybe the pretentiousness of it, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe I'm just being too.
Particularly as she's effectively being used. She's at home with sort of her creator Willem Dafoe, and there's sort of a young man sort of starting to take an interest in her. And then
this is why I'm a little bit reluctant to see, just because I'm a great admirer of Yorgos Lanthimos, and I think he's got the power to put really these quite singular visionary films together, and also attract quite a good cast as well. I would kind of say that certainly 2024, the last couple of years have really been Willem Dafoe's year. He's popped up in a few more movies that we've seen.
Yeah.
Most recently in Nosferatu.
But the point of it is
it's
dodgy because Mark Ruffalo comes along and just basically is a right sleaze. And
I'd be a little bit concerned to see it because of that aspect. I'd be like,
but eventually she does outgrow him, and he ends up kind of losing. It's morally you could argue it, but the film actually has its own riposte, if you like.
I was a little bit worried about a small aspect of potential animal cruelty as well.
I wouldn't worry about it
in the trailer, but I've been told it's fine.
They're not going to have done it for real anyway, so I really
I know, but I'm always a little bit like.
But just imagine
one of those movies where does the dog die?
No, there's experiments, so you've got these weird crossbreeded animals, but their eyes are CG or some weird puppeteering going on.
Okay, sounds good. Dear, oh dear.
Okay. Where do you want to go next?
What else have we got?
Dune Part 2.
Oh yes, that was quite a big movie, wasn't it? Dune 2.
Well, I think the only thing I would say with Dune 2, and I'm not going to say a lot about it, is it was, even though it felt like the second half of a larger film, the first film was an awkward night. I remember going to see it at like a smaller local cinema rather than my normal multiplex. Why? I can't remember. And it was about 2 months after I got married, but I'd lost quite a lot of weight, right? So I'm sat in the cinema. I'd lost more since. I'm on about my third or fourth wedding ring now. But the first one, the one you saw me put on my wedding day, I'm sat in the cinema and I glanced down and I suddenly noticed my ring's not on. It's like fallen off. I'm looking all around me. I'd been to the loo on the way in. I went and looked all around there. I asked, and it really distracted me. And I was only about an hour in the film. And I looked at Joanna and she was really, really confused by the whole thing and bored. So we walked out of it. Not just because it wasn't working, and I was a bit worried that this thing was at home. As it is, I bought another one, which I then had to have resized, and it turned out to be not great, and I ended up buying a third one anyway. But so I ended up watching it on, I think, Netflix just before the second one, and I got through it just fine. I thought it was visually interesting and great. The second one has all the payoff in it, so even though it's a really long film, it's just denser. There's more lore in it, but the lore is in service of storyline. And when it finishes, you want more. And you sort of, spoiler alert, realize you've been watching the bad guy all along, which makes you want more of this world. So I've got to be really positive about it. And Timothy Chalamet, I think he suffers from the same thing, even though he's not a pretty boy in the same way. He suffers from the same thing Leo did 30 years ago, that he's just a phase sort of slightly not particularly masculine.
Gen Z love him.
Yeah, but actually I saw him in Wonka last year and loved it. And,
I really enjoyed Wonka as well. I kind of thought, can he really live up to Jim Wilder?
He's actually really good. And at the end, where he really starts asserting himself, he can do it.
I was never. I'm never really sure about like what the hype of Timothy Chalamet. I was just like, I just never got what the. In a way, I always thought it was a bit astroturfed, a bit like the hype. I was like, yeah, he's fine, whatever, but I don't get why he's like. But yeah, in the second one particularly, he does kind of like step up when he kind of gradually builds up to sort of to being like a leader type character. I will say I was like surprisingly convinced for that one, and and Dave's right with it as well. I think the problem with the Dune films, it does feel it was like a two-parter. It doesn't feel complete. Like the first one feels like I've just watched like the first act of something, and now you're watching the rest of the film in the second one.
Has some of that,
yeah, I would kind of agree.
So
I mean that was kind of like the really kind of the big release, well, certainly one of the biggest releases of the year, pretty much, wasn't it? It was like one of the most hyped, really highly anticipated films of last year.
Oh yeah, definitely, and
probably until Wicked came along.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's going to be up for any Oscars. I don't know, is it? Probably
June.
Not. Yeah, I don't know.
It's not announced yet, anyway.
I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure if it was eligible. I don't know.
Because the first one was, doesn't it? Didn't that win Oscars?
I don't know without looking.
But yeah, it was a similar. But funny enough, it was a similar sort of thing to the film that I watched, Horizon.
Is that this year?
Yes. So
tell us about Horizon.
Horizon is Kevin Costner's, or part one, should I say, Horizon Part 1.
I never got around to seeing it.
Likewise, I didn't see that one as well.
Now,
I think it had a very limited cinema release, didn't it? And then it went to streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the second part was going to be released earlier this year as well, but then it got pulled because it didn't. Well,
It bombed.
it bombed, so to speak, and
that's a shame.
It's a funny thing because watching it again, it's the same sort of thing as Dune. Obviously, Dune's more successful, but I felt like I was watching again, it's part one of a story. So while everything I watched was pretty good, I feel like I can't really have much of an opinion on it because I've watched it's like watching maybe the first 2-3 episodes of a series.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it felt. I kind of felt like this should be like a periodical TV show where each episode's good 90 minutes, and it's like a big TV event kind of thing. But you put it together, it's like a big, massive 10-hour long odyssey. That's kind of how it felt to me, and somehow it just didn't quite. I don't know. I don't think there was that much of appeal to it to go to the cinema. Maybe it wasn't advertised as much. I don't know. But again, I don't feel like I can give an opinion on it because I don't feel I've seen where it's going. Now, apparently, it's going to be 4 parts, I think, now or something.
Well, you're not going to get part 2's been shot.
Yeah.
So whether they, but I mean, I've just read it's delayed indefinitely. Well,
oh no,
what does that mean? That's not the same. That's not the same as what was it called, Batwoman, where they just pulled it.
Well, they just cancelled it, didn't they?
Yeah.
It got too expensive, and then just pulled the plug.
But they're both finished films, but they've not said no. We're never showing this. So I don't know. I don't know if they're thinking they can maybe package the two to a streaming service down the line. That could be what happens.
Yeah, I mean, that would be for me. That'd probably be the best shout. I mean, I'm not opposed to sort of doing a limited theatre run of them.
Yeah.
But, it might happen. You never know.
But I don't know.
Was what you saw promising?
I mean, yeah. I mean, for what I saw,
was that a comedian sigh? Was that a Chris Burns
no,
sigh?
no. Because I think it's more frustrating because what you saw was it's very well made, it's very brutal in places, very well shot, very good sort of variety of different characters, a lot of complex, a lot of grey sort of morals. Think, oh yeah, that's kind of interesting, and it just kind of it starts and then you're there for about 3 hours because there's all these plot lines, storylines going on, and then it just sort of ends and you go right, okay, can I see the next lot?
It should have been. It looks like it should have been presented in the same way as something like North and South was. Yeah,
something
absolutely.
like that. Yeah,
maybe it's something that could have been a TV series, but was kind of coupled, not coupled together, but kind of strung together for theatrical release, perhaps.
I mean, it did give me the taste that I really want to watch Dance to the Rules now.
Yeah.
Made you want to watch that?
Yeah, because I don't think I've sat through that properly.
I haven't. I know what it's about, obviously, but I don't know. I haven't.
But
speaking of Dances with Wolves, that has a John Barry score.
Yeah.
Can we also talk about a few Bond movies that received their anniversary re-releases in 2024?
Sure.
Or not? Just to hijack you. Sorry, Chris.
No.
No,
well, I hijacked Dune, so you go ahead.
No, I think we're done on Dune. All I would say is the second half improves the first half and was genuinely enjoyable in its own right. The only thing I would say is it's certainly not just because it isn't romantic, but it's not a date movie in that I was with someone who just wasn't feeling it. And if someone with you's not feeling it, you'll struggle. You need to watch it and concentrate on your own. But I did like the second part. Talk to us about Bond, Becca.
No, I really enjoyed Dune as well. Because I hadn't seen the first one, and then it was on Netflix, so I watched it. I was like, oh, okay, I'll get into it, and then I hope for the second one, and then really enjoyed it as well. So 2024 obviously had a few Bond movies receiving their anniversaries. Goldfinger turned 60. The Golden Gun turned 50. Moonraker turned 45. So I was lucky to see all 3 of these at the cinema, one on location, which is pretty cool. It's always good to see these films on the big screen. Obviously, last few years I've been lucky self membership at the Prince Charles in London, which I've let go because.
Well, it wasn't luck. Presumably, you bought it.
Well,
you didn't wake up and go shit.
I was gifted, which is very nice. Okay. But yeah, it's kind of I've not decided not to renew because it's quite expensive, especially with rail fares being what they are. But yeah, and they're not this year. They're not going to be screening them. So it's kind of it's a shame, but I'm glad they showed them when they did. But yeah, the screening I was lucky to attend at PCC for Goldfinger was attended by Martine Bessick and also Noel Wansdell, who is kind of Oscar-winning kind of sound designer.
The Oscar for it, yeah.
Pardon?
I said he won the Oscar for it. Yeah.
Oh, he won the Oscar for it. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean, 60 years ago as well. So I mean, it's great that he's still well enough to do that. I was only thinking yesterday. We're in our 10th year, and we'll talk about this another time, but I was literally trying to remember all the Bond series alumni we've lost since we started, and I was getting to quite a number. So yeah,
unfortunately, we lost quite a few along the way, but yeah, Normal still is as of this date still going. And also Martine Bessick as well in attendance. I don't think it was like a special event or anything like that. Just they screened the film and invited them along. Yeah, it was great in 4K. It was also shown at the BFI later in the year, just on a strand of action movies.
I do need to see Goldfinger again. I've not watched it for a while. I was only thinking about it today because I'm actually I sort of ran out of podcasts I wanted to listen to, and I started listening to the Nobody Does It Better oral history book because I've got that on audio, and I think I'm just towards the end of Thunderball now, which means today at the gym I went through the Goldfinger section. So I was thinking about that film quite a lot today, and I do need to see it again.
That's one of those films where like you kind of, certain aspects, you do have to kind of like gloss over, and like famously at the moment films do tend to have kind of like content warnings before them, saying, warning, this film contains outdated beliefs or attitudes, that may offend. Well, considering it was 1964, and obviously famously tries to turn on a black man.
This film contains the outdated example that idea that drinking and shagging's a lot of fun.
Wouldn't we have to say that about? When it gets to the point where we have to say about every film that's been 30, 40 years old.
Exactly. There'll come a point where they'll have to have content warnings on everything.
Just remember, in front of Rocky, it'll be just remember, kids, boxing's dangerous.
Yeah, literally, do not try this at home.
Yeah, just remember, everyone, the zeitgeist of today wasn't the same 40 years ago.
Literally, things have moved on even in the last 10 years. But anyway, speaking of racist, sexist movies, Man with a Golden Gun also celebrated its 50th anniversary in 2024. Perhaps one of Roger Moore's misaligned films. Maybe as we approach our 10th anniversary on this show, we might go through and reappraise all the Bonds. I'm not quite sure. We'll see what happens.
I definitely think we'll redo Bond again, but the thing is, with our recording schedule, it'll take us a year or two to do.
It will.
So whether when we run out of commentaries or books even, we sort of do them between series a couple at a time, maybe. I'm up for reappraising them. What I would say is on TV, yes, at home, yes, but I wouldn't cross the road to watch The Man with the Golden Gun.
No.
not on the big screen. It's not a particularly pretty film, and it's not any good. It's boring.
I think because it's sort of Eastman colour, so it does have that slightly sort of lurid look to it, unfortunately. I mean, it's very pretty, very colourful film.
I'm not sure.
Come on, Dave. You surely want to see Sheriff T.W. Pepper on the big screen.
It's one of those things, it's not kind of, it's slowly going up in my estimation. I mean, it's not the best, it's not my favourite, certainly of Roger's oeuvre as Bond.
It's not suited to him. The villain's brilliant, but barely in the film.
Yeah, he's kind of not in it very much, but I think they have great chemistry. And whilst he is the very little time he is on screen, Christopher Lee absolutely sizzles. Like, he is one of the formidable Bond villains, certainly of that era as well. He does sizzle in his white linen suit. But yeah, I think it's kind of partly conflated the fact that I was really, really lucky to be able to do the On the Tracks of 007 tour of Thailand, a few days in Phuket and a few days in Bangkok. Which is a bucket list location for myself. So I've kind of take days off. Phuket.
Yeah, I know.
So it's really interesting to go to James Bond Island as well, and kind of where they saw it, and it kind of gives, well, certainly for myself, it sounds really stupid, but it just gives me a sort of bit more appreciation for it as well, like how they set up the shots, how they dealt with like searing heat, humidity, obviously it was a bit different back in 1974. I kind of see where they made these films, and just the conditions that they were working with kind of really opens your eyes a little bit, really, to how it goes on. So it's really interesting to go down those clongs and saw where they filmed these amazing boat chases, and see how dangerous and how polluted some of the rivers are, just because I'd never been to Asia before. Anyway, moving on quickly to Moonraker as well, celebrated its 45th anniversary. It's really cool to see that on the big screen as well. Again,
I'd go to that.
Yeah, that's one of those things, 'cause it was quite good, like last year, because obviously, especially the PCC, for example, and Park Circus, shout out to Park Circus as well, distributed like all the bonds for the anniversary back in 22, and then obviously just carried on doing the series, various other cinemas again for the next couple of years. So I thought, right, now's my chance to mop up all the ones that I hadn't seen on the big screen. So you might see like Moonraker, View to a Kill, and a few of the sort of Roger ones as well, like For Your Eyes Only, for example, and things like Goldeneye, which I'd not seen when it came out in 95 because I was slightly too young. So it was a good opportunity to sort of mop up all those. So it's really good to see Moonraker on the big screen as well. I feel I'm a shout out to Phil Latchford, known in the JBR community as like Mr. Moonraker. He's become like the oracle on all things making of Moonraker. So shout out to him. I'm not sure if he'll listen. Hopefully he will. Hello. But it's really good. Hello. Really good to see this one on the big screen as well. I mean, fair enough, it was kind of made, on the tailwinds of Star Wars, the sci-fi boom that came off the back of Star Wars. So they had to quickly shuffle, productions had to quickly kind of shuffle everything around to try and get this one out, as it wasn't next on the schedule so much. So, Star Wars
wouldn't have been set in space either, would it?
No, it wouldn't have done. No.
The title that sounds vaguely spacey because it's got moon in it.
Yeah, literally. So, but yeah, I thought, right, okay, I have to shuffle around the schedule and get this one out, so it hops on the back of the Star Wars trend. But yeah, it's great to see.
It's not particularly high up my list, although I think people who slaughter it like one of the worst films, they're laughing more at, well, maybe the double taking pigeon, but also the concept. In execution, it's like the sillier end of Roger Moore. It's pretty good, but the it's not that bad, and the score is lovely, and the visuals
it's
are
actually
lovely.
quite dark as well.
Considering it's the 1970s as well, which is like not the best dating decade, it's beautiful to look at. So
yeah,
I would go to see that on the big screen without question.
And it has a great disco score, 70s disco score.
Yeah.
At the end with the disco version of Moonraker, which is very, very classic. So yeah, I just thought I'd mention there's a couple of bonds that were kind of having their anniversary.
Okay, I'm going to just whip through a few quite quickly just to reference them, if you like. I saw American Fiction, the Jeffrey Wright film.
Ooh.
Did you see this? He plays this.
I didn't. I wanted to catch it, but I missed it. But yeah, tell us about it.
Well, it's not as good as the concept, although it starts really funny. He's an author who writes this book. He's an author who's not particularly successful. So with his arse in his hands, he writes this book he writes a book that's almost a spoof. It's all the most offensive racial stereotypes he can think of. And shockingly, he gets offered a massive advance for it. And he's like, I can't put this out. So he demands they change its title to Fuck, and they go with it. And then he has to go on a panel appraising his own book. It's worth seeing for that, but it doesn't quite live up to that concept.
That's a shame. Yeah, usually Jeffrey Wright, I mean, he's, to be honest, like in terms of Bond, like for me, he's one of my sort of most favourite Felixes.
Yeah.
And just a sort of really laconic, quite cynical worldview.
He's got that.
And he's a fantastic actor, like whatever he does.
It suits laconic, and for fuck's sake, it fits that attitude. A couple more from last year. Naiad, I switched off halfway through. That was the Jodie Foster swimming film. Mm-hmm. Really, really, really boring. That's all I'm going to say about that. Oh. And then there was Next Goal Wins, the Michael Fassbender Taika Waititi comedy.
I didn't see that, but I did see the original because we screened it at Film Club.
The trailer's funnier than the film, and it just tells me Taika Waititi is a far more limited filmmaker than he thinks he is.
Listeners, rather than stick with this remake, go and check out the original documentary. It is 100 times better. Unfortunately,
it's a true story.
I didn't see the remake, but yeah, based on a true story, the world's worst football team,
and
how they rose up through the ranks.
Yeah, he just
it's an incredible story. It's a true story as well. But check out, I mean, if you're a Taika Waititi fan, go and see the remake by all means. But seek out the original documentary.
What's it called again? Sorry.
Next Goal Wins. The same.
Oh, it's called Next Goal Wins.
Yeah. So yeah, it's based on an original documentary. The Taika Waititi one is basically a dramatized remake.
Dramatization, yeah. The trouble is, Taika Waititi thinks everything he does is comedy gold, and I'm just this guy is wearing on me very fast.
No, I mean, it does sound a bit of a winning combination, because you've also got Michael Fassbender as well, as he's the coach. But yeah, so I did want to go and see this one because I've recently seen the documentary, but I missed it for some reason. But I would highly recommend the documentary for sure.
And I think I think I may have two more from last year actually, but they're all in different orders than when I saw them. The next two are extremely well received. The first one is Anatomy of a Fall.
Yes, I saw that. Brilliant.
What did you think?
I kind of really enjoyed it actually. To be fair, it was quite long. It's like 3 hours long, isn't it? And it's essentially like a court movie. But I thought it was really structurally well.
Because she's so morally grey as well.
Yeah, she really is. You don't know. It's one of those ones where you don't really know who did it. Do you believe her? Do you not believe her? And yeah, it's sort of quite twisty, quite turny. It's quite verbose as well. But it's really well done, and you stick with her all the way through. She's such a fantastic actress.
She is. Sandra Hüller.
Sandra Hüller.
I mean, no offense when I say this, because she's only in her mid-30s, but she's got a quality, like Germanic quality, and looks a bit older than that. But you'll have seen her in stuff, and I'm trying to remember what the stuff is, to be honest with you.
She was. She had. Well, I think it's the first Sandra Hüller film.
She was in the next film we're going to talk about.
That was it. And she was also in a film. I think it came out 22, 23. In a film called I'm Your Man.
Right.
With Dan Stevens, where he plays a robot. But that's not really what it's about. And she also plays a robot. But you can highly recommend that as well. Dan Stevens, it turns out he's fluent in German. So he's kind of got a side career, making German language films. One of them which was I'm Your Man, where he's basically kind of like a robot male companion, boyfriend, lover. Sent to this woman, and Sandra Hüller kind of plays like the leader of this organisation that supplies them, and she's also, it turns out, spoiler alert, that she's also a robot. But it's really,
she was
good.
In Munich, The Edge of War as well.
Yes,
which I've seen, and I think that's it. Going back, there was a few things there I may have seen, but
also she, and she's also, I think she's in an upcoming Sissy film. Let's find out.
Yeah, she is, Sissy and I.
Yeah, which is really good. So I'm a big fan of that kind of story. So so I'm looking forward to seeing her in that one.
So Anatomy of a Fall, huge recommending for that. But again, keep your eyes on it, concentrate, and just like
you have to pay attention, don't you? You really have to pay attention.
It's a very very atmospheric film as well. It's Also,
there should have been an award for best dog. I think Messi the dog could have won. He's quite famously the best dog in that film.
It's funny because the director of the film, Justine Triet, is the same age as her but looks decades younger. But really, really good film. But she was also in Zone of Interest. Chris, have you seen either of these?
No, and I keep meaning I do want to see these.
I think now Zone of Interest I'll watch streaming, so I have to be aware that it could be when you see something at home and you're really bored, you might just be distracted or having a drink or whatever. Zone of Interest was fly on the wall to the point of boring me. I couldn't engage with any of it. It was just stuff happening.
Again, that's one that I wanted to see, but obviously because of the subject matter, I was kind of like, obviously it's about the family kind of living next to the concentration camp. And I was like, is it graphic? Do you see a lot of the violence?
I think the whole point is the guy playing Rudolf Holst.
The fact is that you don't see that.
Well, I think the problem is, right, I think it's so successful at what it does that it worked against the film for me, because he's next door to Auschwitz, but he's trying to run an almost idyllic but perfectly normal family life, wife, children, picket fences, nice garden, yeah. But it's trying to juxtapose the horrors of Auschwitz, which I don't think you ever see, with the mundanity of an ordinary life and this horrific man living that ordinary life.
I think that's perhaps what was so shocking about it.
But it was so mundane. That's the problem. I just got bored with it. I can't say a word against it. I need to see it again because I just could not tune into it at all. And that's really all I want to say about it. Did either of you see Wicked Little Letters?
I did. Yes, I did.
I loved Wicked Little Letters.
It was so good, wasn't it? I saw it quite a few times actually. It's amazingly based on a true story as well.
It is a true story. It is a
true story about these kind of like fake malicious letters that were sent in Eastbourne or somewhere like that along and the coast, along the coast.
It's the real life Littlehampton Libraries.
Littlehampton, that was it. That was it.
Which is it's near Chichester.
Yep,
Yeah.
nice seaside resort. I think Terence Melton of Majesty's fame lives near there, or in that vicinity when he's not living in one of his many other homes abroad.
It's got a really good cast as well. It's got Olivia Colman, obviously, Jessie Buckley, who's a really underrated actress.
Yeah, she's fabulous.
Joanna Scanlon, Eileen Atkins, who's 90 now and looks nothing like it. Timothy
She's fabulous,
Spall.
still going.
Timothy Spall often plays quite avuncular. He's a right fucking prick in this.
He's an awful character, isn't he? But that's just testament to his range as an actor that he can play.
Timothy Spall.
Bastards.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of those guys who can probably just play anything.
Yeah, he's so versatile. He can do anything.
What's in Eddie Marsden? Like he could.
Yes.
He could play.
He's anything.
Yeah.
He could play like soft, like.
And he can turn on a dime.
Yeah, he could play anything from like the soft, gentlest character to like the worst shitbag in the world.
Yeah.
I was talking about that TV show earlier that on Netflix I couldn't think of the name of. It's called Missing You, but Steve Pemberton is the bad guy in it, and he's chilling as fuck.
Oh, I need to see that because he's in that Robbie Williams film as his dad.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Leave Gentleman.
I'm not racing to see that, but yeah.
Yeah, I need to. I might go and see that. But...
I was tempted to watch that today, but I didn't get around to it. But I might watch it tomorrow, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah, let us know. I saw the fact that he was a chimp, and I was like, So I need to get over that mental block.
But on Steve Pemberton, I am firmly believe that he's the best actor of the League of Gentlemen.
Oh, he is.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
But he's chilling in this. He really is. I'm trying to think of the name. She's called Rosalind something or other. She was in Slow Horses anyway. Missing You. It's worth seeing. But the trouble is, I warn you now, as entertaining as it is, if you've got any sort of critical faculties, you'll spot all the fucking plot twists almost straight away. I just thought it was I thought it was written by imbeciles in places, but it was entertaining and well made. By the way, just all I want to say on Wicked Little Letters is give you what it's about, and then we'll move on. But I just want to say something I didn't know. The music is done by Isabel Waller-Bridge, sister of Phoebe Waller-Bridge and sister-in-law of Michelle Dockery.
Didn't know that.
Okay, but it's a real story. There's a sort of very religious woman, Olivia Colman, middle-aged. She's a spinster. She lives with her dad, who's a very religious man, and she starts getting hate mail through the post, and it's pure filth, right? It's just really foul-mouthed and stuff like that.
It's like 1930s filth. So.
And she blames it on this Irish woman next door who's very free-spirited, lives with a black man, which isn't usual for the 1920s. And it's just about the increasing tension between these two, and the letters get worse and worse. And Jessie Buckley refuses to sort of rein in her behaviour at all, even though she's saying it's nothing to do with her. And it's just funny and really well made.
Yeah, it's a brilliant cast, brilliant supporting cast, like British film. It's one of those kind of really good, sort of feel good right in the end, like British movies, definitely well worth saying. Yeah, fantastic cast, fantastic script. It got a bit of recognition at the time, but kind of went a little bit under the radar.
It was really good, and it has turned up on streaming now. I have definitely a feeling it's on Netflix.
It might be on Netflix. You can always pick it up from Studio Canal, definitely, because I think they released it as well. Really good. Olivia Colman, she's always worth it. Like she hasn't made like a duff movie, even when she was in that episode of Doctor Who 10-15 years ago, playing an alien. She nailed it. So.
She'll always be what's the name of Peep Show to me?
Sorry, yes, it's Netflix. She interviewed David Brent in the first series of The Office as well.
She did, didn't she? Oh my god! She had this amazing TV career before she launched that. But she would be off Peep Show. I mean,
we talked last year about that one she did set in 1980s at a cinema on the South Coast. I've forgotten the name of the film now, but I talked about that one last year. But she's done a couple of films that have bored me, but she's always good. But yeah, so moving on, we'll skip over the Prince Andrew interview biopic scoop. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
Yeah, I caught this one. I don't think it was that well received, certainly by the fans, what I gather.
I remember remarkably little about it now.
Yeah.
Apart from a couple of visuals.
There was a lot of Frozen stuff, and there was
it was very cold.
There was a ghost girl in it.
Yeah. Which was kind of implying a love relationship with our young female lead. But if you hadn't mentioned it, I would have forgotten it.
No, I must confess I did sort of forget a little bit about it, but it seemed like, because unfortunately I hadn't seen the Ghostbusters film before this. I've seen like all the classic ones, but I haven't seen kind of the reboot, as it were, unfortunately. So I kind of feel like I need to go back and I heard that was probably the better of the bunch, and this was kind of more of like a sort of a box checking exercise, I guess.
Afterlife was a better film.
Yeah, I need to seek that out. Unfortunately, I don't think I've seen it.
You know how if you do watch Afterlife, at the end the Ghostbusters just suddenly turn up, and you expect like a round of studio applause. It's like when the Fonz walks in. They're just so crowbarred. Well, this is the whole film. The whole film is like, look, they're back and they're working together.
Yeah, I did kind of get the impression it was a little bit sort of fan servicey, especially like Bill Murray as well. Like he has like the most random. I know he's quite random anyway, but and they tried to recreate the scene where it's like, yes, you have no balls, but I kind of
this man has no dick.
This has no dick. That's the one. And I think they tried to recreate that a little bit, but I kind of got the impression that a lot of it was kind of left on the cutting room floor, perhaps, which is a great shame.
Yeah, I'm kind of similar to that. I can remember it, but kind of not remember it.
Yeah, I don't remember much about it, unfortunately. I'm very sad to see.
I think I just remember it being very, very meh, very like, it didn't have the charm. Like Afterlife just felt like a really nice love letter to the original Ghostbusters.
Yeah, and of course, because they're out in the sort of countryside, it's got that Norman Rockwell thing that they were going for with the middle act of Superman the movie. And
while the Ghostbusters turn up, but at the end, but it gives like the new characters time.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's just a little bit of a bum note, and well, fair enough. We expected you to do that anyway.
Yeah. But then it's like the focus is on the main character, so it's like they pop up at the end. Whereas this one, it's like you've got so many different characters vibing for different screen time. It doesn't work. It just didn't work.
No.
I mean, I get some of the things I said. Maybe it's like it felt a bit more like the cartoon TV show. It felt like an extended episode of that, which
now I'm thinking
kind of get. But
it's slowly coming back to me as you talk about it. I think the problem was they often say about a character, they'll say, well, they're the heart of the film. So in the first film, it was the daughter, wasn't it? She was very much the heart of the film, having to go and live there and, everything else. In this film, they didn't know whether she was the heart or whether Paul Rudd and her mother was the heart of the film, because there was something sweet about Paul Rudd and hers relationship. But is the relationship between her and Paul Rudd the heart? I don't think they knew who the emotional centre of the film was. Plus, they're trying to service these sort of cameos from our superstars from 40 years ago. So I thought it was a bit of a mess.
And you had the love story as well between the girl and the ghost that was a little bit...
we get it. She's probably a lesbian.
Nothing against that whatsoever at all. But I think it's just, for me, I remember it was quite scary. And the fact that everyone was kind of like scared, frozen to death, I thought, well, that was quite a cool twist, excuse the pun. But I kind of feel like it was quite a busy film. They tried to cram perhaps a bit too much, as I say, trying to cover it, whoever they want to be the lead. The fact that all the gang got back together, and then the love story as well. It was quite busy. There was kind of a lot going on. I was a bit confused as to what he wanted to do.
What worries me is there are so many films on the list, and I don't know if it's... I mean, it isn't me. My concentration and memory are still very good. So, but we're going to go through quite a few films looking at the list of what I've got ahead of me, where I don't really remember them too well.
It's been a memorable year, isn't it?
It's been,
definitely.
They haven't always been bad.
If you come unstuck, I've got a couple of musical biopics that I'd like to chat about.
All right. The next film I want to talk about is probably going to be my hottest take of the night, if you like, because this film got critical raves, and I actually left, and I left not out of disgust. I left because I had a little bet with myself, right? I'll explain what the film is in a minute. I got half an hour into it, and mentally I could map the rest of the film. And I needed the loo. So I thought, I'm going to go and see if I'm right. So I went to the toilet, looked the film up, read the plot, and I'd predicted the whole thing. And I thought, fuck that, and walked out. It was Civil War.
Oh, I didn't see it.
I thought it was just, I could just see everything. I mean, I could tell you, sorry, spoiler alert, I knew Kirsten Dunst was going to die because we have continuity Kirsten Dunst right there. It's a bit like in Star Trek Nemesis, when you bring another Data along, of course Data's going to die. I kind of knew the president was the bad guy. It didn't have the social relevance I thought it would have. Now, as incendiary a choice as it would be, if you literally did a Civil War film that was split along the lines of red and blue states, it would have some resonance. But when you've got Texas on the same side as California, this is fantasy. So it didn't resonate with me, and I just
I
thought
think it was meant to be kind of like this real sort of polemic of a film. It didn't kind of really. Was that Alex Garland? No.
The problem is Alex Garland. But I just to finish my point, my problem is half an hour in, I knew what the next hour was going to give me. The next hour and a quarter was going to give me, and I couldn't be asked.
No.
I think to your point about the stage, yeah, that is a bit like, hang on, what? I think that was probably deliberate to sort of say, I'm not,
this isn't real. This isn't.
Yeah,
I'm not taking a side.
or this is like a heightened reality. I.e., we're not backing one side, blah de blah. We're just like, this is like, or
people would see in it.
Yeah,
what they wanted
and there was
to
no
see.
real like emphasis on reasons why. I don't remember anyway, or at least it wasn't focused too much in the film.
No,
what thing I kind of got from it, I think it felt very much like they were trying to give off this. It's almost like treating like sort of the United States as like some foreign country elsewhere. You have these reporters, they photograph, the sort of the overthrow of the leader or whatever. I definitely got that from the end where you have seen all the photographs and things like that. Amongst the credits, it felt like it felt kind of like, let's just do a film about photojournalism in war environment, but let's do it like to add resonance. So let's do it within the United States.
I thought they could have buried all of the leads far better.
Yeah,
it had like a really good cast as well. As I said, like Jesse Plemons, people like that as well.
Kieran Hines.
Definitely.
The oddest thing is, though, I mean, Dave wouldn't have seen this, but like when Kirsten Dunst dies, like the Kirsten Dunst .2 kind of doesn't seem to give a shit. When it happens, it's just like, oh, okay.
Well, they're years into a war as well, so there's a degree of like they're all emotionally numbed as well, which doesn't help the film. I think like I'm saying, that the problem is you put Nick Offerman there, something's afoot, and it's just a little bit too obvious, and none of the characters are interested enough to. And I was really disappointed by it because I was really looking forward to it. Because I thought it
received quite a lot of hype, didn't it, as well? And being like Alex Garland film, like this is an event movie, but it kind of didn't really live up to it. I mean, I personally didn't see it, so I can't really talk. But I kind of got the impression that it sort of fell flat a little bit.
I just felt that even though you are taking different alliances than you would ever get if there was a genuine civil war, God forbid, over there. I still thought it was brave to even talk about it in what is a really, really polarized society over there. And then I went to see it. None of the characters were interested. And within about 20 minutes to half an hour, I'd mapped the film out in my mind. Now, I'm not a genius. I do get caught out by films sometimes. Missing You, I did. I was like, I just said I've got all but one of the sort of plot points in that before we got to the end. Sometimes I think, is it my age? Is it just I've seen so many thousands of films that I start spotting these things? But no, I'm still surprised by films. I don't think it was as clever as it was meant to be. And I think the sort of faux seriousness of the subject matter lends it a cachet which isn't really there, in my opinion. But I appreciate most people disagree with that because it did get very, very well thought of.
I think I did have the option of watching it on the plane on the return flight from Thailand, but I think I watched Robot Dreams instead, which was a film I'd like to talk about, and it was miles better. So
so just before Becca talks about that, I'll just go with Dave and say, I didn't sort of dislike it as much as he did, but at the same time I did find it kind of a bit wanting at the same time. Like it didn't go, it didn't sort of probe into not that it needs to start making partisan points, but it didn't sort of go deeper into enough of the subject matter which you'd think it would. Do you know what I mean? It didn't sort of start asking questions that would like, well, what would this mean, or what could lead to this? What questions that we need to go deeper in ourselves, which would have made it a bit richer, I thought. But yeah, but
it didn't really have anything to say, which was worrying for that type of film.
Yeah,
I mean, talking of films that have nothing to say, because it's the next one is the standard. This is another one of the examples I've just said about films that are totally forgetful. If I'd not written this down, I wouldn't have remembered seeing it, although because of the flow of the title made me think of a different film, but I'll explain in a minute. In the Land of Saints and Sinners, it was a Netflix film that came out this year, and it's Liam Neeson, and it's one of his fairly standard actioners, although it's got the sort of backdrop of the Troubles on it, the sort of Irish Troubles. And I'm sat literally reading the plot synopsis, and I don't remember it. I was getting confused because when I saw In the Land of Saints and Sinners, I thought that came out years ago. And I thought, no, it didn't. I'm thinking of A Walk Among the Tombstones, which ironically I remember better. I don't remember this film. I don't remember this film at all. And I think that is the biggest critique I can give of it.
I remember seeing it on Netflix thinking, oh, I quite want to watch that. And that's all.
I have not heard of it. Would you recommend? No.
Well, it didn't offend me. I mean, the thing is, I've literally just this evening, because we started it last night, and then she wanted to go to bed. She'll watch anything with Liam Neeson in it, and she keeps buying 2-litre bottles of Evian as well. I don't know what that's about. But no, joking aside, she really likes Liam Neeson, so she's always happy. And I always say, I'm happy to watch Liam Neeson, but he does do any old action shit for money. He does. And but I watched what was it called, Cold Pursuit, last night and today. And which I'm aware is a remake, but I started watching Memory before that, which was garbage. But I watched Cold Pursuit, and that was okay, as long as you take it for what it is. You know, a Liam Neeson actioner, but not a bad one. I don't remember this one. It clearly didn't offend me. I clearly didn't go, well, this is embarrassing, or he's not convincing at all in it. Because there are films like Taken where he does the action all right, but he doesn't do the sort of blokey mate bit all right. I've said this before. Brian sits around and has a barbecue with his friends, and you're like, none of this feels authentic. You're just trying to give him any sort of backstory.
I think that's kind of. Well, I'm only going off the first Taken anyway. It's like because the rest of the film, he's there. Well, at the beginning of the film, he's trying to sort of get in with his daughter. Try and have a relationship and he just seems awkward all the time. He just feels
but even when he said, I'm sure he's perfectly personable, but one of the Taken films, he's literally sat around having a barbecue with his friends, and I don't believe it. I just watch it and go, I don't believe this at all.
Well, he's still in I'm awkwardly Neeson mode until it turns to oh, she's a daughter. She's kidnapped.
He's an action star, but not that he's your everyman dad.
And I think it's because if you give him Oscar Schindler or anyone else like that to play, if he'd indeed ended up playing Lincoln, which he was meant to, ended up being Daniel Day-Lewis, I'm sure he would have A, researched the real character, and B, thought about these things. But of course, if you're turning up just to do an actioner, and most of your interest is choreography and all that sort of thing, this sort of backstory stuff don't matter. Just have a barbecue with your pals, all right? You haven't really thought about the character, so why would you imbue it with anything?
Not convincing.
Next one we could skip past quite quickly. Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. See the answer we gave some months ago. We did a review on it.
That, didn't we? So
we were positive. It's better than we probably expected it to be. You could argue it's the best of the sequels.
Kevin Bacon, I think, was a high point for me. He was really superbly sleazy and slimy as the villain.
Bit obvious, but yeah, and he plays,
it was a little bit like
he plays a.
It was really good though.
It's a loose remake of the first film, really, but I quite enjoyed it with flaws. But I listened to our review of that a little while ago because I couldn't remember what we thought of it, and I knew we were doing the year review, and we're all really positive. Next one out, unless anyone has anything to go in there, is Inside Out 2.
Yes, I saw that one. Really good. For me, it was because it was the first Pixar movie to break the $1 billion barrier, wasn't all the bees?
Yes, it was.
Whereas I've got my little review.
Because I think the record before that might have been Finding Nemo at 8.
Yeah, I think it probably was. The first Pixar film to break the 1 billion barrier. For me, I think it was until The Wild Robot came out, was my animated film of the year. I didn't this year has been kind of like a bit of a bumpy year for anime and also animated movies in general, generally. But unfortunately, I haven't been able to see most of them. Unfortunately, the only ones I've seen, the only sort of animations, really major animations, I've kind of seen really Inside Out 2, Wild Robot, also Robot Dreams, which I must rant and rave about because it's fantastic.
Yeah, please do the other animated films perhaps after this, because I've not seen either of those. All I'd say about Inside Out is I think it felt like a good sequel should feel. Not quite a retread, familiar, but an expansion. And it is, because Riley has the girl whose brains they're inside. I think it's Riley, isn't it? That's the name.
Yeah, right. Yeah, my head. And plus it'd be good for those audiences as well, like who've grown up with Riley, like first time, when the first Inside Out movie came out.
You might have taken your children to see it, and now they're post-puberty.
And now you've kind of grown up with her. Now she's a teenager.
So more emotions come along. So it is by definition as an expansion, and it leaves the first one feeling almost like a proof of concept. It's very rare. I prefer an animated sequel. Toy Story 2 I do. I've only ever seen it once, but I do remember preferring The Incredibles 2 to the first one because I think it's paced better. And I think this may be, it's certainly of a similar standard. Happy to recommend it.
It's definitely one of those sequels that kind of dares to outdo or outperform its the first film. But I think Inside Out, it kind of really struck that nerve, didn't it? And I think there's a third one in the works. And especially even if you're, especially it was so relatable. We've all been there. We've all gone through puberty. We've all gone through our teenage years. With these new emotions. Who are they? What happens? Or even like it struck a nerve. Obviously, a lot of young people sort of, I don't know how I'm going to say this. I don't mean to sugarcoat it or sound harsh or anything like that. But certainly since the pandemic as well, like a lot of young people have come out with, living with a lot of like mental health issues and things like that as well. And certainly if you suffer with a lot of anxiety, regardless of whether you're a teenager or not, this film, it sounds really stupid, but me as an adult in early 40s, I kind of felt like called out a little bit by it. Because I can certainly agree with the anxiety response and kind of that's literally how it feels, kind of what goes on in your head when you're overthinking everything all the time, and that really struck a nerve. So it was quite emotional film for me, even though I'm not a teenager.
It feels properly thought about, doesn't it? It feels properly thought about. What do these emotions feel like? Yeah.
And I think they're properly like fully realised as well. Like it's quite funny how like anxiety is just a total mess. It really makes your hair, and she's got like all this baggage everywhere, and like ennui as well. It's just basically like this really big dude who's just like just wants to lie down all the time. I think so. Yeah, some of these new emotions they're really brilliantly realised. I kind of thought, well, how are they going to do it? How are they even going to sort of visualise some of these things? But I think Pixar I don't know how they do it. Just the animation just keeps on getting better and better and better. And another one of those Disney, well, I think it's probably Disney sequels that came out a couple of months ago was Moana 2. Just thought I'd give that a quick mention.
I've not seen it yet, but I haven't seen Moana yet.
No, check that one out. I mean, for me, I did quite enjoy Moana. I mean, I'm not the target demo. Unfortunately, I do have children of my own. If I did, I'm sure they would love it. But I'm a bit of a Disney fan, so I've got to mention this really a little bit. First one I sort of really loved. Two really great flagship songs from it, Fire Go and Shiny. And obviously the original was a few years ago now. Obviously the second one, again, the animation is absolutely stunning, really beautiful. All the cast are on like top form, but I wouldn't say it's probably as memorable. Like the songs certainly aren't as memorable as the first one. So if you didn't catch it at the cinema, but if you are keen to see it,
was Lin-Manuel Miranda, wasn't it? The music.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he is a genius, definitely. I mean, like Hamilton, Mo Poppins sequel, he's just a lyrical genius, really. But I kind of feel like for me, like if it's a good song, can you hum it? Can you hum the tune? Do you leave the cinema humming the tune? Wicked, I can do. Moana 2, not so much. Although I did see Wicked like 5 or 6 times, and that's probably got something to do with it as well. But it's just one of those things, really. I mean, if you didn't get the chance to take little ones to go and see it at the cinema, then certainly it's worth it on Disney Plus. But obviously, don't go out of your way, unfortunately. But again, the animation is still really, really beautiful. Just segue again onto animation. I must bang on about.
Yeah, go on.
Wild Robot. And also Robot Dreams. First of all, the Wild Robot. This is the DreamWorks. Sorry, I just need to get the information up in front of me.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
I'm Ron Burgundy. Here we go. Let's have a look. Yeah, so yeah, really fantastic cast. Lupita Nyong'o, Pedro Pascal, Bill Nye. Oh my god, Matt Berry. I didn't realise it was him to begin with. I was like, is that Matt Berry? Ving Rhames, Mark Hamill pops up. All-star cast, really beautifully animated, but this robot essentially who's turned out to be like a service robot set far into the future, but is stranded somehow on this mysterious island, but didn't quite know how it got there, had no memory of being there, so he's basically had to kind of learn how to live with its surroundings, live off the land, and sort of befriend all these wild creatures, wild animals, hence the wild robot. And yeah, it's one of the most kind of really beautifully animated films of the year that I sort of managed to see as well. So highly recommend it as well. And then the other film, Robot Dreams, which I think may have come out in the US probably end of 2023, but it received a very limited release over here, sort of summer 24, I think. But I managed to actually see it on the plane coming back from Thailand. It's a really charming film, again, very quite simply animated, sort of European animation studio, I think, through French-Spanish, I want to say. Virtually almost a silent film. There's very, very little dialogue. Very charmingly, very simply animated. About a robot and his dog who's a friend, and they're friends together, and about kind of like how they form this friendship. This sort of lonely dog, sort of, living on his own, sort of bachelor life, I guess. Sort of befriends a robot. It's a very simple story. And then unfortunately one day the robot malfunctions. And so he has to kind of like abandon him on the beach, really. And it's just about kind of sort of friendship and loneliness and kind of what it means to kind of, especially, to sort of to befriend somebody who may be an artificial life form. But it's kind of really tenderly done. Like the animation, it's always kind of simple, but it's quite sort of beguiling as well. And again, there's not much dialogue, but what really needs to be said, to be honest. But it will leave you with an earworm. Earth, Wind and Fire, September. You will come out of that film whistling that, and it will be stuck in your ear forever. So that's worth it, just all on its own. Also, I just want to segue. There's a couple of musical biographies that came out in 24. One of which was Bob Marley, One Love, which has a few Bond connections as well.
Who are the Bond connections? I saw trailers, and I must admit I didn't fancy it.
No, the main one.
Is it worth seeing first? Well, first off, is it worth seeing? Second, what are the Bond connections? And then tell us about it.
So I kind of feel like I'm not. I feel like somebody who needs to be like a Bob Marley. I'm obviously a fan of his music and everything like that, but I kind of feel like we need a fourth person who's like a Bob Marley fan to come in and tell us all about it. But yeah, so yeah, a Bond connection would probably be Lashana Lynch. But I kind of feel there's a few other Bond connections as well, in terms of the production side of it. But I kind of say, because I went to go and see Mary Poppins at the cinema, because it also got its anniversary release this year. But unfortunately I got the timing wrong, and it had already finished by the time I arrived, because the wrong times were posted on the website.
So you've got a great story about how you nearly saw a film.
Oh, I nearly saw a film. Yes, I did. I nearly went to go and see Mary Poppins. But
I did watch it this year, because my wife saw it a couple of years ago and liked it, and I have played it for her again this year.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, so yeah, that also received its anniversary re-release in cinemas.
I saw the musical last year as well in London.
Yeah, really good. I want to see that, definitely. I hear it's quite different, and there's a few different songs, so I'm a little bit.
There's a few different songs and slightly different, there's a few different plot points as well, but it's broadly similar. It's quite well done.
Does Bert still have a terrible accent?
I can't remember, to be honest.
Well, Governor, or has it got better? But anyway, yeah. So I sadly missed Sherry Bobbins, but instead went to go see Bob Marley, One Love, which is really, really good. But I would kind of say it's broad kind of brushstrokes, and it's more like an authorised biography, I guess.
That's the thing. It did look very surface.
It was very much so. But the better musical biopic, I would probably say, was back to back the Amy Winehouse biopic.
Which you keep meaning to see and haven't yet.
That is worth checking out. I would probably, of the two, obviously if you're a big Bob Marley fan, go and see One Love. But I was Amy Winehouse fan as well. I was lucky to meet her one time. Her stage persona is completely different to how she was meeting her fans. That famous beehive, it was all pretty much there and iconic.
I actually got the impression she was quite shy, and that's where a lot of the problems came from.
She's really, really lovely. I mean, like on stage, she kind of, she's sort of quite had this sort of bravado, really kind of trying to project like self-confidence, despite being really quite vulnerable and quite shy individual as well. And yeah, to meet her, she's really down to earth, really lovely. Wanted to chat about us as a fans, because obviously we were waiting for quite a few hours until she finished the show. It's nice to kind of meet her backstage as well. That was really cool. And unfortunately, sadly passed away at a young age.
27. She's in the 27 club.
She was, unfortunately, under 30, sadly, due to like substance and things like that as well. But yeah, this.
And I think has it been 15 years? Did she die in 09 or 11? I can't remember.
It's been around that time. So it has been a while now, hasn't it? Unfortunately.
I think it was. I think it must have been 09.
It was 09 or 11. I can't remember which.
No, actually, no. I think it was 11. Actually.
It's been a while, anyway.
It has been a while, definitely. But I was going to say, of the two kind of biopics, that would be the one to see.
Okay, I will check that out on your recommendation, because it is in my queue. And a couple of times I've almost sort of scheduled myself to watch it, and I've forgotten, and I've either been doing something else or didn't fancy it that night. But yeah.
Yeah, highly recommend it as well. What else have I got on my list? I've got quite a long list here. Quite a long list of films. Another classical movie that got a re-release in glittering 4K was Lavender Mob. Obviously 1950s Ealing comedy.
Dated and timeless at the same time, though.
Yeah, literally.
They're very off their era, but they'll never go out of.
They'll never go out of fashion. Hopefully, we'll cover Ealing at some point on our show. I would love to, because I think that'd be pretty cool.
I did a review 3 or 4 years ago now of Kind Heart and Coronet's home release on Set the Tape.
Yeah, that was fabulous. That's probably one of my favourites. It's just a classic. And plus, like in the trend.
No, it wasn't. Sorry. What was the other one?
Oh, Queen of Spades.
No, the one that bloody Tom Hanks remade.
Lady Killers.
The Lady Killers. Sorry, it was the Lady Killers I reviewed.
The remake was terrible, but the original was fantastic.
The remake's embarrassing.
And especially because it's Tom Hanks. Oh my god.
What was so like embarrassing? What was so bad about the? That was Coen Brothers, wasn't it, as well?
That was a comedian style.
The thing is, it's British. It has to be British. Now, I don't mind American remakes. They sometimes work. I'm certainly not being all superior about British humour at all. But sometimes things just don't translate. And this is a weird sort of study of manners. It doesn't translate. But also, quite simply, it's Tom Hanks' worst performance till he played fucking the Colonel in Elvis. He's great. He's great in most things, but he's just all wrong for it.
It's
and
quite
it just grates on you. It grates on you immediately. And also, it's
is it all like
the other thing
costume
is,
and the
no one's going to
all the teeth and the accent.
No one's going to confuse it with like Star Wars or something. But the fact is, it is still a relatively high budget American film, a Hollywood product, and it doesn't suit that. It suits coming out of Little Ealing Studios.
Yeah,
I'm up for remakes. Ocean's 11 walks all over the original. So I'm not one of these. I think
because the first one is so iconic. Alec Guinness is just so sly, so smarmy.
Admission though, I saw the remake first and didn't like it. So when I was offered a chance to review the original, I thought, I want to see this because I never had. I thought it was fantastic. But really it's one of those things that may not travel. Now, I think humor is humor. If you make something in American cinema that's funny, we tend to laugh, and vice versa. But there are exceptions. There are things that like they don't always get. Like I imagine quite often they're not going to get Alan Partridge. And I
can't imagine like there being an American version of that. But things like The Office, for example, that has done very well. That's translated very well.
I mean, they had to retool it. They had to take the stink of failure out of it.
And now we've got like another version in Australia, or something like that, for example.
The point is, though, that
sometimes like British humour doesn't
always I recommend,
go across the pond.
I can totally imagine people totally in tune with my sense of humour, like our stuff, like the stuff we talk about, stick on the Lady Killers and go, I don't get what's even interesting about this. I just think it's very, very British. I just think of all the films you do a Hollywood remake of, that would be way, way, way down my list.
And I think that's all the way it looks as well, because it was kind of very bold, very colourful as well. Whereas like with the Lady Killers, you've got kind of really washed out. Otto Heller, typically, the cinematography is typically in his style.
I don't know.
And it's kind of very grimy.
I don't know. The reverse would be trying to make The Great Gatsby on a fucking Barnsley council estate. just the wrong environment for it altogether.
Yeah, it's one of those films. It's so uniquely British, and it's kind of very much British experience, isn't it? Pretty much, kind of motley crew of crooks as they try to swindle this lady out of all her money. Basically.
The one bit that will travel is there's an element of farce to it, and farce is universal.
It really is.
There will be bits that people smile at, but some of the more subtleties of humour, and it isn't because you don't get subtleties, guys. It's not that. It's just that the subtleties are uniquely British.
So that was my review of the re-release in 4K of the Levendale Mob.
Okay.
Also starring. But no, it's just one of those, and plus also where there's a trend of films being 2 hours plus. It's literally like under an hour and a half. It's nice and quick, one and done. It's very charming from start to finish.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what else is on my list?
I'll give you the next one on mine if you like. Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yes. Oh yeah. What did you reckon?
I enjoyed it while it. Chris, go first. You haven't had a lot to say.
No. It's it's kind of it's the only Marvel film, wasn't it? If you don't want to include Madam Web.
I don't
no, because that's the Sony Spider-Verse, isn't it? So that's Marvel adjacent.
Yeah,
Marvel adjacent.
Yes.
God, what is going on there?
Well, it's dead now. I'll just say quickly, I don't know if we're going to cover it later. I haven't seen it, but Kraven the Hunter has flopped, and Madam Web flopped. So I didn't
see Kraven, unfortunately.
And obviously Venom's done, so that's it. We'll talk about Venom in a bit. So no, I think that universe.
Kraven Hunter, directed by what's the guy's name who did Margin Call and
Dangerous
Year.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't go and see it. The reviews were toxic. Sorry, but we'll come back to that anyway.
So does that mean Aaron Taylor Johnson will now not be Bond?
What? Because Kraven the Hunter flopped. What? So if how does that work? I don't even get the logic of that.
I don't think it does.
So if Darby O'Gill and the Little People had flopped, they'd have gone, he'd be no good.
Connery would never have been Bond.
He's not going to be Bond because by the time they get to making it, he's going to be like 50.
He'll be too old.
Yeah.
At the to be fair, because he was 32 when it was first mentioned, and he's probably 33, 34 now, he's probably still got a 3 or 4 year window. But if they carry on like this, then no, it will be something about 22.
Before the time they get around to it.
Yeah.
It'll be Timothy Chalamet or
I mean, oh my God.
Hurry up and knock out a son, Chris, and you might have a contender.
Yeah. Not a bad shout. Anyway, what we talking about? Oh yeah, Deadpool. Yes, this is the only official MCU film, which kind of feels like a bit of a chance to save the franchise. Should we say?
Yeah.
It's like let's.
It's the palate cleanser before the big reset.
Yeah, I'll just say I enjoyed it for what it was, but I found it very superfluous. I kind of thought, and thinking about it as a way to sort of for Marvel to sort of claw back and start anew, which is kind of what it's aiming for. I'm thinking too little, too late, and I'm also thinking I think the Marvel, DCU, Cinematic Universe, DCU. Even that, I'm thinking you missed your window. Just forget it. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they had. I mean, it was this year they announced Robert Downey Jr. is coming back now. There may be a very good in-universe explanation for how a guy who looks exactly like Tony Stark is now Victor Von Doom.
Let's face it, it's going to be like a different universe version of Stark.
But it will be. And actually,
will he have the same beard?
The Fantastic Four looks all right, but I just think that because not everything's a train wreck, but it is shocking how they went from nearly all good to nearly all not good. And it's almost like just a complete change of emphasis. I'm not going to use words like woke, and certainly diversity is not a problem, but they started hiring very different people without the chops to do it. And I don't really know what happened. If I thought about it long enough, I could come up with ideas as to how it ended up the way it did. But it might turn out really well. And there's enough talent there to course correct. Kevin Feige is responsible for the first 3 phases. I mean, there's no saying they can't pull out of this, but phases 4 and 5 have been nothing short of a disaster, in my view, with the odd half-decent film in there. but it's had no direction. The films have been relatively poor on average. And I think when you say we're bringing back Robert Downey Jr., that sounds like panic to me. That sounds like shit, right? Because you remember when Endgame finished, his signature went last, didn't it? When they were signing off at the end.
He was the big star. Going to need him to really kind of boost the efforts of this film.
As for Deadpool and Wolverine, some of the jokes were just so fucking obvious. I mean, when it turned out to be Johnny Storm, I'm sure I hadn't read that, but I could have told you that because it's just too obvious. It's not going to be Steve. It's not going to be Steve.
There's quite a bit of telegraphing.
Yeah, and I wanted to like it more than I did. I thought
it was quite, for its certificate, I thought it was quite violent. I mean, obviously it's going to be quite gory, isn't it? But I kind of like, considering it was like what, 12, 15?
If you put it in the MCU, you don't know whether to ignore logic or not. Because, for example, we know Wolverine dies in Logan in the year 2029, and he's digging him up in the present day. So all of that is like, do I think about this or not? Because it's meant to be some reset of the universe. And then after that, I think it proved what I thought to start with, in that if I'd seen this film first, i.e. I'd never seen a Deadpool film, I'd found it really funny. If I'd have seen the second one first, I'd have found that really funny. But because I've watched them in order, Deadpool could support one viewing for me. That was it. I loved the first Deadpool once. When I rewatched it, a bit more bored with it, didn't really like the sequel. It's worn out its welcome now. Yeah, I didn't dislike it, didn't think it was bad. Always happy to watch Hugh Jackman. Bits in it made me smile. But I'm bored of the character and I'm bored of the style of humour.
Do you think Ryan Reynolds is getting a bit tired?
Yeah, because he is some version of this kind of blabbermouth, kind of says lots of inappropriate things, but is charming, really, guy in most things he does.
Yeah, it's a bit one note, isn't it?
I quite like the guy. I mean, it's been successful for him, but I mean, he was doing this in Blade Trinity 21 years ago, you know, and probably I've never seen Van Wilder, but I can't imagine that was like any different.
No.
And, you know, it's all very one note. And then you go and watch Welcome to Wrexham, which is kind of sweet in its way. But, you know, the way he goes about...
That's kind of different, though, isn't it? Because that's like almost semi...
No, but the way... No, it's real. It is based in reality.
Well, it is, exactly, yeah.
But my point
it's kind of almost separate in
the
that
way
regard.
he promotes himself and talks to fans is exactly the same. And it's all getting one note. I'll never dislike him. And I quite like, you know, in the odd tweet where he's like taking the piss out of his wife and that, it's funny. And I'm not slating this film. If I'd never seen a Deadpool film and I'd never seen a Ryan Reynolds film, this would have had me laughing my ass off. But I'm bored. I'm bored of the character. I'm bored of this style of humour. I'm bored of the fact I can see every fucking joke a mile away. Not for me anymore. But that's not to say it's bad. It just means I'm exhausted with it.
Yeah, conversely, I loved it, but it was a little bit too much, I think.
I will say that you know, him and Hugh Jackman do have chemistry together.
Yeah,
Hugely.
they did.
Hugely.
Huge Jackman.
Yeah, hugely.
But it is a bit of a, you know, after making a whole thing about Logan being the last thing, it's like, okay, fine.
Oh, we'll just go and grab another one. I'm tired of that as well.
Yeah.
But he was really good, though. They had great chemistry, and it's always great to see him, you know, back in the kind of yellow spandex. And I'm sorry, as a pet lover, as a dog lover,
back in the yellow
from me.
Yeah, back in the yellow spandex he's never been in before.
And if you go back to the original X-Men cartoon, and that's what his name for. And then first in the original X-Men movie, they do make a joke. He's like, oh yeah, yellow spandex. You know, you're not going to make us all wear that. But kind of like you know, and you've got the color scheme as well. I mean, he does kind of wear a uniform that does have yellow in it, so you've got kind of like the red and yellow sort of coloring going on there as well. So there is a reference to, you know, the original cartoon.
Yeah.
So you know, it's obviously not yellow spandex.
And
but it's yellow leather
I
instead.
didn't look, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was a producer on it, because it is totally Ryan Reynolds congratulating himself.
Well, it's a Ryan Reynolds show, pretty much, isn't it? But I found it hilarious. I mean, some of the jokes were a bit on the nose, but for me, like, the film belongs to Matthew McFadden. He was just hilarious in it. He was probably the best thing about it. He's kind of like the villainous type character.
Yeah, he was.
Pulling all the strings.
Yeah,
but for me, he stole the film, definitely. Well, apart from that, Dogpool stole the film, because she's gorgeous, most beautiful girl. But yeah, for me, in terms of, even though it was very much the Ryan Reynolds show, I can't spell his name, Ryan Reynolds show. Like, for me, the film belonged to Matthew McFadden. It didn't belong to Dogpool, obviously.
I was just amazed that Jennifer Garner had bigger arms than Wesley Snipes. That was just
Oh, she took it seriously, unless there's some serious CG going on there. Because
Yeah.
she did train hard for the original Electra
She
film.
looked buff.
Because she looked well physically fitter in that than she did in, say, the original. What's it called?
Yeah, really buff.
What's the character called?
oh, Electra.
Yeah, Electra. No, the first film she was in, Daredevil. Sorry,
Daredevil.
yes, she was in much different shape for her own film. So yeah, she does take it seriously. And it was nice to see she's got a sense of humor.
Actually, that's probably a twist that I didn't see coming. Actually, that's probably ones when she appeared, I was like, oh, okay. So
the next one is another one that, astonishingly, I have sort of forgotten most of the details of. I was completely underwhelmed by Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
oh, I didn't see that. I think
no,
we were
never
going to
got
see
around
it
to
and discuss it, weren't we? But unfortunately, I missed it.
We didn't do a review of it. We're not now playing, and that Now Playing will go back and top up their old series. We haven't really ever committed to doing that, in that we stopped Marvel at the end of Phase 3, and that was sort of it. We may go back one day, but given how bad 4 and 5 phases have been, I'm not so sure. So obviously we did the Planet of the Apes films, but to be fair, it felt complete. It felt complete at the end of War. I don't think it needed this, and it's sort of moved on another generation. And I think all I would say, without going into any of the details, is I couldn't get into any of the characters. I just felt like theoretically, I'm up for more Planet of the Apes that brings you something more like a modern interpretation of the original film and stuff like that, where you're decades, centuries, maybe even millennia on from like when it all happened. I'm up for that as an idea. But they've set this uncomfortably close to Caesar's time. It's only a few decades or a couple hundred years or something like that. It's still sort of the same world, sort of the next generation. Whereas what you needed was the next millennia. And so it's trying to sort of piggyback off that story, the sort of descendants of Caesar. And I couldn't get that into it. And it's as simple as that. I've got very little more to say about it than that. It's one of those, again, because, as is always my general thinking with streaming, when you're at home, you can be distracted, you can be not in the right mood, in the same way as when you go out to like a cinema and really concentrate. This might be a better film than I'm giving it credit for, but I wasn't that in love with it. It just didn't grab me. And I think
Did it do the box office generally as well, or what was this?
That's a good question. It grossed a worldwide total of just under 400. And that's off a budget of 160. I would suggest that's probably just
moderate success.
Yeah, and again, everyone's great in it. The sort of the animations is done extremely well. The set design, everything's great. It just left me thinking either this has not moved me or I need to watch it again, and I won't know. One day we'll have a conversation where we mention Planet of the Apes and I'll say, oh, I saw it again, by the way, and I was wrong or I was right or whatever. But on first viewing, it did absolutely nothing for me. Now, the shocker of films I have pretty much forgotten, and in fact I even forgot I saw it, although it's coming to Disney Plus next week, is Alien Romulus.
Yeah, I didn't see that either.
I've now, at the moment I've called it up, I remember it.
I didn't know it was on Disney Plus. Or it's going to be on Disney Plus soon.
On the 15th, it launches on Disney Plus on the 15th of January. I literally saw that today because I saw it there. I heard it
was very, very scary, and a lot of the effects were done in camera. Like they tried to use as little CGI as possible. That's what I can tell you about the film.
Well, I haven't used this one for a while. It's a bit like GoldenEye. It's a greatest hits Alien films. It's trying to take the best elements of Alien and Aliens. In fact, even in a digital inclusion of Ian Holm.
Oh wow!
It's like another version of the. It's not Ash. It's another one from the same line.
Oh okay.
And
if you're not as defective.
And is exactly the same kind of character as well.
It's exactly the same. The only thing I can say, and I'm having to look at it to be reminded of it, is the only thing you never saw in the original films, much, maybe a bit. You didn't see much of how people were living. You know, there was staff on ships, and then there was a prison.
Lives, yeah.
Here, you actually get a little bit.
Of Earth.
This is, you get a little bit of Earth, and or no, it's actually on a colony, actually, the Star Colony, and you get a little bit of like them working there and having credits for it, and then they suddenly double the credits they need to get off. So they're basically get off the planet, not get off. They so they are effectively slaves, and then effectively they sort of break away, steal a ship, and all the rest of it, and that's how they go to, I think they go to find is it a sort of is it a distress signal or something? They basically head for this craft, and it then just turns into something between Alien and Aliens. Once again, we've got this business of the gestation of the alien being whatever it needs to be. I missed that about the first film, where he had the face hugger on his face. It eventually sort of finishes its life cycle and falls off. He goes about his business for a while. When you've almost forgotten about that, he's having dinner, and it's time. Its gestation is finished. In the sequels, we've had them, particularly the Alien versus Predator films, it would land on their face and burst out their chest a split second later, it felt like. And this film sort of continues that. I'm going to say that to its detriment, I couldn't remember it till I called it back up. As soon as I've called it back up, I remember it really quite well. And the nicest and weakest thing I can say about it is it's greatest hits Aliens. And we've been spinning our wheels on this series for how long now? Nearly 40 years. If you take, even if you said Alien 3 was somewhat interesting, that was 1992. So that's 33 years ago. So it's over 3 decades since this series
it
had
also
anything
features from
interesting.
Alien 4 as well.
You can yes, it does, and you can explain that in a minute. You're absolutely right. It's the hybrid.
Oh,
thing.
and also Prometheus.
Yeah. Chris, what did you? My final thought is this series has nothing left to offer, but this is actually watchable enough, and some of the set pieces are quite well done. So it's a well-made film that has absolutely no artistic reason to exist. What did you think, Chris?
Yeah. I for what it is, I had fun with it actually.
I'd agree with that.
I didn't sort of go into with any major. Well, I didn't really sort of know what to expect, really. But broadly speaking, yeah, I had a good time with it. Yeah, I know it's like I was basically sort of thrown like, basically a bunch of nostalgia. Oh, do you remember this? Oh, doesn't the aesthetic look a lot like the original Alien? All that kind of thing. But it's like, but for what it was, for a bit of popcorn entertainment, I had fun with it. It was actually, I saw it with my wife, and she loved it. So there's I think she said it's the best film she saw.
I'm just remembering now the fucking engineer hybrid that grows to a ridiculous size in about 5 minutes. Yeah. Sorry, Chris. I was just remembering that plot point.
Yeah. So, but it does sort of try to sort of I suppose I kind of appreciate it for not just like doing the thing of we're just gonna sort of do a sequel to Alien and not acknowledge the others, or Alien, and then not acknowledge the others. It goes like no. Prometheus happened. I appreciate the boldness of doing that. Going like, yeah, no.
Oh, it doesn't skim over it then.
Yeah, I don't think it skims over it because it's kind of relevant to the characters where they are at that time.
It acknowledges it's part of a wider canon and doesn't pretend any of that canon didn't happen.
Yeah.
So if you think of Superman Returns, for example, it almost pretends like 3 and 4 doesn't exist, even though it doesn't explicitly disavow them. And we've had pitches for like Terminator Dark Fate pretends 3, 4, and 5 haven't happened. We've had pitches for RoboCop where it's going to be a direct sequel to the original and stuff like that. It doesn't.
Halloween have done it as well.
Halloween's done it as well.
Yeah, that kind of skips over and ignores certain sequels, doesn't it?
Cameron. Oh no, it wasn't Cameron. It was who was it? The District 9 guy who was going to do a sequel to Aliens.
That's right.
Oh yeah, he was, wasn't he?
Yeah,
yes,
that's right. He was going to pretend 3 and 4 didn't happen, so you can keep like Michael Bihn's character alive or do whatever you want with it. To be honest, yeah. Yeah.
But I appreciate the sort of like the no, we're gonna fully embrace the all the films, warts and all. We're gonna I kind of like appreciate that. But then again, I suppose it is produced by Ridley Scott, so I don't suppose he'd not include stuff from his own film. But there there was that. Has anyone seen that uh M Night's film Trap?
Yeah, I did go to see that.
What are your thoughts, Becca?
Yeah, go on, carry on, because I didn't see it.
So yeah, this is a bit of a comedic insight. So it's meant to be Josh Hartnett's. Well, it is his triumphant return. Obviously, famously, like in sort of 90s and early 2000s, he was this really huge star, like sort of teen heartthrob. Certainly within horror movies as well, with like obviously Halloween H20, H2O.
Faculty.
The one set in the high school. Yeah, The Faculty, that was it. Yeah, definitely. But also a string of like rom-coms and that as well. But then he got to a point where the fame just became too much, and he sort of shunned the limelight. Thought, no, I'm going to take a step back. Focus on his life, focus on his family. So this was kind of meant to be like his big return to the horror genre, definitely. And who else better to do it than M. Night Shyamalan, who's kind of making a comeback of his own. I think his last couple of films, probably, to be honest, I've not seen them unfortunately, but I kind of gather they haven't done as well as perhaps back in his heyday of like Signs. Or
he self-funds. The only thing I'm going to interrupt to say, because I haven't seen it, but the only thing I'm going to say is one of the things you have to remember when you see any M. Night Shyamalan film now is he funds his own projects, which means he has absolutely nobody telling him no.
No, and yeah, and he sort of became really, when he kind of burst onto the scene, he was pretty much called like the new Hitchcock, wasn't he, with all his, because his films being so kind of twisty, turny as well, and also having a cameo in his film, which he kind of does here as well. But also got his daughter in the film, who plays the sort of the Taylor Swift-esque kind of singer. They go to the concert as well. But I kind of saw the trailer, and it's one of those films where like you try to go in with an open mind, but you can see all the twists and turns coming. You know what's going to happen. But I just kind of went and enjoyed it for what it was. It's great seeing Josh Hartnett back. He's a phenomenal talent. He's very handsome as well. But yeah, just kind of having sort of grown up with him, in that kind of genre as well. And I mean, it was fairly predictable, unfortunately. Like a few sort of twists and turns here and there. But great performances there about as well. But I saw it at the cinema, but I think I went on a cheap night, so I'm kind of glad that I didn't pay too much to see it. That sounds really bad. But otherwise I probably would have just stuck to sort of seeing it at home, picking up the home release, for example. But yeah, Chris, what did you think?
Well, yeah, again, this is one of the reason why I put up. This is the one where I took my wife went to see it because on the rare occasion she actually goes to cinema. It's one of the films she really wanted to see, and she loved it as well. She absolutely loved it. Me, not so much. It was one of those things of like, what do you think? She's like, I loved it. It's like, what do you think? I was like,
I think it's different, isn't it? I think, I mean, because we're of that kind of similar sort of generation, around similar sort of age. I mean, maybe only a few years in there, definitely. But yeah, she, and also, being a woman, you're going to think, oh yeah, Josh Hartnett. But yes, I think you're either going to sort of love it or you're going to be like, nah. So yeah, carry on, Chris.
Yeah, I think the key word for me is frustrating.
Yeah.
Because from the start, like, I loved the concept. Like the trailer was kind of like,
the concept sounds fantastic. The trailer was really good. It sounded like on paper it could have been amazing.
It's this could be a really schlocky kind of like really good like 90-minute kind of thriller that that's a bit dark and a bit like a bit quirky, but but also kind of cool at the same time. And it just kind of
didn't quite hit that mark.
Yeah, and Josh Hartnett is, I think, is fine in it. I think he's like,
he's quite creepy in it though, wasn't he? I thought as a serial killer.
But it was it went one way, and then it sort of decided to do a complete U-turn, and then went this way, and then before you know it, you're spending like almost like a third, if not nearly half the film outside the concert. And I just
when it leaves the show, it really does kind of fall apart.
And I feel like and I feel like the premise, you need to stay within your premise. Yes, maybe in the last act, it's like Speed. I mean, like
Stay on the bus.
Yeah, you stay on the bus. Obviously the last act, you can get off the bus and tie up all these ends, blah blah. But for the majority of the time, the concept is key. The guy is at the concert. Everything needs to be set at the concert. The film ends as the concert ends, kind of thing. Or
if you're going to do it in real time, exactly.
Yeah, and it's and then you go into his house. There's this. Then there's escape. Then he's gone back to his house. And it's just like, what the fuck is going on? Like stick to your premise. Don't deviate and go do this and that, because I just felt it was just an entire complete mess at the end of the day, and it was just really frustrating, because what really should be quite a simple, like, not one note, but just like, simple, like, sort of high concept premise, and just execute that. It just felt like it kind of was just trying to be clever, but in a way it was just kind of like mirrored out of its own little holes it made for itself. So
yeah, it sort of painted itself into a corner several times, didn't it? And then really struggled to get out of it.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it didn't work for me, sadly. It was
a bit disappointing.
Yeah.
But Josh Hartnett was great.
Yeah. So yeah, M. Night strikes again.
Yeah, unfortunately, rather didn't on this occasion.
Yeah.
Oh, I was so like hopeful when he did Split, and I thought, oh, he might be on his way back here, and like, nah, the guy's up his own ass. So here you go. Just a quick
documentaries I'd like to talk about.
Yeah, go on then.
If you come unstuck. Well,
no, it depends what you want.
3 actually.
All right, so I'll just quickly mention 2 more films,
and
then you do yours, and then I've got a couple more that are sort of thematically a bit similar. So, just a quick sort of Netflix original I did watch, if you like sort of the soppy sun-kissed type films. Find Me Falling is something my wife wanted to watch. It's a Harry Connick Jr. film, but it's one of these.
Does he sing in it?
I think he does. Yeah, I think he does towards the end. But it's like a music star who goes and moves to, beautiful sun-kissed Europe to sort of get away from what's going on in his life. So it's very in the Under the Tuscan Sun, those sorts of films. It's very like that. But the next cinema release I saw was Lee. This is the Kate Winslet film about the photojournalist.
Oh, the
Lee.
biopic.
Yeah,
it's really good. I wanted to see it.
I thought it was really good. This was. I'm just.
It looked to me like it was a little bit by numbers, but.
I don't think it's reinventing the wheel, and there is a plot. There's a storytelling device in the film that, if you've ever seen a film, I think you'll see through straight away.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's about. I'm trying to think of her full name. It was Lee Miller. That's it. But it's got a really good cast. It's got Andrea Riseborough in it, playing bizarrely a lot older than she is, but she was in it. Marion Cotillard's got a relatively small role in it. Andy Samberg's got quite a big role in it.
It's like his first dramatic role, isn't it, as well? Because he's mainly known for sort of comedic roles.
Yeah, Alexander Skarsgård's got a small role. Josh O'Connor's got a sort of present-day role in it. He played Charles in The Crown, and bizarrely has been mentioned as a James Bond. I can't see that unless it is James
I could, actually.
Yeah, but
I wouldn't mind him in the role.
It would just be it would just have to be the literary Bond. It would have to be. He couldn't be the action Bond. But anyway, it's a Sky. I think it's a Sky film, so it'll turn up on there fairly soon. But it's just about this photojournalist who sort of, it's flashback. So it's got her in the 70s, like old age makeup and everything else, talking to an interviewer. And then it flashes back. She started off as a fashion model. I was
going to say, yeah, she wasn't always a photojournalist, was she? She came from the world of fashion.
No, I mean, there's a bit of toplessness and all the rest of it. And she's looking very well for her age, I must say that. And it just takes you through her career and how she's not supposed to go into combat zones, but she manages to sort of force her way in and gets, assigned as a war correspondent. She goes
quite pioneering in that regard.
Yeah, the Normandy landings and all the rest of it, the French resistance, and it really it doesn't get under her skin as much as I would like, but it does really give you a feel for the fear she must have felt. There's a few very visceral sequences when she's in it, and Alexander Skarsgård's got, as I say, sort of a love interest for her in it. When you read up on the real woman, that's all rather confused what happened there. But yeah, it's a good film. It is a little bit by numbers, but it's elevated by really good performances, and it looks nice as well. It's just a very, very well made biopic, and if you have an interest in the character or would like to learn more about the character, it's not a bad place to go. Becca, you wanted to talk about a couple of things?
Yeah, I kind of feel like we've had a sort of biopic-y time of year this year. Well, 2024 definitely, with like One Life, musical biopics. But yeah, so there's a couple of, well, 3 sort of documentaries that I managed to see. I've got to shoehorn it into every single podcast that we do. But first one, Made in England. Basically, Scorsese, judging how much he loves Paolo Pressburger. It's just basically, it kind of tells their story. There's a lot that's omitted, but just basically it is 2 hours of Scorsese saying, "Oh, look how great they are! It's amazing." But it's really well made. You can tell his passion, and you can see like how influential their films were on his own films as well. It basically tells a story about how essentially he sort of rediscovered Michael Powell sort of 1980s and like in their career up to that point, and tells the story of the Archers, how they got together, how they made some of their biggest hits, and then what kind of broke them apart, really, how their relationship ended. But it's kind of very simply made. It's kind of almost like entirely box pop, so it's like hosted by Scorsese, and he just sort of guides you gently by the hand through their films. But the sort of the passion and enthusiasm that he has for them really comes clear. That's really seeps out of the screen, and it will send you down a rabbit hole both with Paolo Pressburger and Scorsese movies as well. So it's well worth a watch from that regard. I think it's on streaming on Mubi, I believe. I don't think it's had a UK release, home release over here. It's available on DVD through Mubi, and also Cohen Media, so you can import it from America. But it was shown over here on the BBC in October as part of the Paolo Pressburger season. So it may be on iPlayer for audiences in the UK, so check that one out. Just because I got back into the films at the tail end of 23 due to the massive retrospective they had at the BFI, so that was really, really good. Enjoyed that one. The other documentary was Super/Man, whatever you want to say, Superman.
Super/Man.
Super/Man. Well, the way it was titled, it was Super.
It was Super/Man.
Yeah, Super/Man, the Christopher Reeve story.
But it's just
I think that's how it should be called, like from now on.
No, but it's Superman rather than Superman.
Super/Man. Or...
But no disrespect meant whatsoever. But for me, I really enjoyed this. Obviously, we covered Superman and Superman series on a show a few years ago now. Dave, it's one of your favourites. Chris, I believe it's one of your favourites as well. It's certainly one of my favourite movies as well. And it's perhaps
one of our better series as well.
Yeah, really quite popular series as well, and one that's quite well received by our listeners. And Superman, I think it remains the quintessential superhero movie, and certainly the most defining performance of his career. But for this one, for me, I think it was a bit of a learning curve, insofar it delved deep into the relationship, obviously, with his family, with his sons, and also the legacy that he left behind as well, and how involved his family were in his charitable foundation, which I didn't know about. And obviously he set it up, and his wife was involved, but I didn't realise that his kids were so involved with it as well, and they really sort of carried on that legacy. I found that to be really touching, and also it kind of delved deep into his friendship with Robin Williams as well.
Huge friends. First person who went to see him after his injury.
They stuck through with him through all his treatment and everything going on as well. And obviously
they were together they met at Juilliard, didn't they? They
did, yeah. They met at drama school. And it was just obviously being a huge fan of Williams as well. Sort of growing up with his movies in the 90s, just kind of really touched a nerve with me as well. So I found that really exciting. I think currently here in the UK it's on Sky Documentaries, so if you're a Sky subscriber, check that one out.
I'm not, unfortunately, but I need to see it at some point. Absolutely.
I think it's elsewhere on streaming, maybe a home release as well. But have a tissue. Obviously we all know the story and it's quite tragic, but in terms of the redemption and kind of the lasting impact that his foundation has had for people affected by the sort of accidents, are it's just extremely profound and really, quite wide ranging. So you have a tissue handy because it is a sad story. And the last little documentary I'd like to mention about, which had a very, very limited release over here, and then was shown on BBC on Christmas Day, was from Roger Moore with Love. So it was.
Oh, I watched this.
Yeah, it was a bit of an interesting one. I think it was Everyman, and I thought, well, I'll go and see that.
Yeah.
And obviously then it came on BBC on Christmas Day, so I watched it again. For me, my impression of, first off, I really enjoyed it. If you're a big fan of Roger, and you've read most of his books,
are you friends with Gareth?
I'm not friends with Gareth. No.
I need to address that.
I know of him. We'll come to it.
We will in a minute, but I need to address
definitely.
that in a moment.
So yeah, personally, first off, I enjoyed it. Again, it kind of skims the surface. If you've read his various books and biographies, like Tales from Tinseltown or My Word Is My Bond, for example, then you'll kind of know a lot about him. Obviously seen his Bond movies and read a lot of like his interviews and like diaries, for example, when he made Live and Let Die. He created this diary, which is now available. It's well worth reading, really interesting. But again, if you're a casual Bond fan, want to know a little bit more about him, then going in, and this is kind of really for you. But otherwise, it's kind of fairly superficial.
It seems very superficial. In fact, it's very like if you watch the anniversary documentary, the 50th anniversary on Bond, when they did that hour and 30, and they were trying to cover like 25 films in like 60 minutes, 90 minutes or something.
Yeah,
it's just not enough.
The whole lifetime.
Yeah.
Obviously, no, this is it. But it pinpoints, sort of certain kind of points and roles. But it kind of, it charts kind of the very, very early years of Roger Moore's career, like from a knitwear model to Ivanhoe to making Italian films, which I never knew about, and then finally becoming Bond. Obviously, the Saint along the way as well. One other, before we get to the cons, one of the pro is obviously you've got Steve Coogan, bizarrely, but he's famous for his Roger Moore impression, and he kind of narrates as Sir Roger here. There's a shot of him actually in the recording booth, which takes you out of the film a little bit.
I was going to say that's not a good thing.
No, but he does quite a good impression there, and he's quite known, well known for his Roger impression.
The problem with that is, I'm just going to be thinking about the blooming trip the whole time, though.
Yeah, exactly.
I did, Chris.
Yeah,
I did.
When they showed the trailer off, I thought, well, that's either got to be Steve Coogan or Rob Brydon, one of the two. When they have that famous Roger off in that restaurant, as who can do the best Roger Moore impression, and it's hilarious. It's on YouTube. Check it out. It's so funny. Oh my gosh.
Come, Mr. Bond.
come, Mr. Bond. Yeah, and they're eating like mussels or something. It's utterly hilarious. Highly recommend it. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, and so one of the other cons. Obviously, this film, again, kind of like Vox Pops. We've got Stephen Berkoff. They must have paid him quite a lot more than they did to attend the Octopussy 40th celebration, because they didn't pay him enough, so he didn't attend. But obviously, he appears in the documentary and speaks very highly of Sir Roger. But the big coup is Christopher Walken, who says in the interview that he famously, doesn't like to go and talk about people that he's worked with. But because Roger showed him such kindness, obviously when they were making A View to a Kill, the story that he tells is that Roger was like, so what are you going to do for Christmas? And he's like, well, I'm just going to sit alone in my apartment, And he's like, oh, no, you're going to come and spend Christmas with my family in Switzerland, and just showed him this really incredible kindness. So that was enough for Walken to kind of really come on the documentary and just, talk about how wonderful he was to work with, which is so lovely. But yeah, the cons so much. So it's a bit Marmite. It's very much surface skimming. And there are some scenes in it which may appear quite disrespectful and perhaps show a bit too much. Like there's one like brief fleeting scene, which unfortunately does show Clean the Ashes, which is probably a bit too much. And there are some quite rather personal love letters that Roger wrote to his first wife, which are perhaps a bit. We didn't really need to see it. It's quite interesting, but don't really need to, very private, shall we say? A bit titillating, which is kind of a bit too invasion of privacy. It's great to see some of these like behind the scenes kind of footage as well. Obviously, his son Jeffrey has just all these incredible tapes of lots of like family footage that that were shot by Sir Roger. So it's quite interesting to see some of these more sort of intimate sort of family moments. But at the same time, does feel a little bit like invasion of privacy almost. And yeah, I think. Yeah, so Steve Coogan's narration, especially for narrating words that Roger hadn't written, may seem a bit strange. And we mentioned Gareth Owen. I don't think he was involved. I mean, I'm not. Dave just asked my friends with me on Facebook. I'm not nothing personal, political, or anything there at all. He's beyond my reach as a friend. Although I have read the book that he's written about Sir Roger. Obviously, he managed to work with him and looked after him in the later years of his life, and when he was poorly. So he had quite a close relationship there as well.
Yeah, he interviewed him if you went to see him live. Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah. And when often he did, an evening with Sir Roger Moore, Gareth would be there definitely.
Okay.
So he's kind of like the ultimate kind of the go-to man about it. But I think he was a little bit sore because he hadn't been perhaps hadn't been approached. I don't think he was involved with this one.
Quite the opposite.
He was.
Okay, I'm reading it now. I don't want to go too much further into this. I'm happy to be talking about it. We've got a few more films to go through, so I'll just quickly read you this. Gareth Owen, 25th of December 2024 at 22:55, so it just finished. What a vacuous little documentary. A cheap, nasty swipe at Roger's beloved Christina by his kids, saying he always called her Kiki. He never, ever once did. She hated that school nickname and he would be totally horrified. Somebody's just said, they didn't include you in the doc. You know him as well as anybody, I would think. I refuse to be involved as
he declined. Okay, yeah, I did sort of wonder.
Terry
I was thinking,
Bamber,
they're going to speak to Gareth, but no.
Terry Bamber, right, I've got to read a little thing with
Terry Bamber, yes.
Terry Bamber says the whole tone was offensive. I'm not friends with Terry anymore because of his tone on here sometimes, but he is a decent enough man. The whole tone was offensive and quite horrid. There was a reply that says Annette Andre, Joan Collins, Christopher Walken, Pierce Brosnan. None of them were offensive or horrid in what they were saying.
No, they were all lovely.
Hang on. Terry replies, of course they weren't, but the whole Steve Coogan narration, the disclosing of private letters that should have remained private, it's a tacky, lackluster, sad indictment of the makers rather than a proper tribute to the man. I've got one more thing to read you. Let me just find it. Somebody asks, I was surprised it was an arena documentary. Am I right in saying that no money from the Bonhams auction went to charity? If so, then they lied at the end. Kids. Gareth Owen says £6,000 from the sale of a UNICEF award.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah. That's
really bad. Yeah, it seems to be it has struck fans right down the middle. Like there are some groups who perhaps maybe didn't know too much.
I had no idea this was like really.
No, it's
by the way,
it's really controversial.
I hope you don't, because obviously it's locked down to who you're friends with, but it's still a public forum. But I felt that it's not unfair to represent your feelings, given you were really upset by this documentary. If you did hear this, by the way, so I hope I haven't overstepped the mark there.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, it has proved to be quite Marmite amongst the Bond fandom. On a very surface level, I did enjoy it, but I can see how it can seem very offensive. Like there are some parts of it I was like, oh, they're showing that, oh, they're going there.
I wasn't offended by anybody. It's just a respect for his point of view.
Yeah. Likewise, it's just it's kind of that kind of viewpoint. And to say again, like the comments there, I was kind of slightly surprised that it wasn't a really documentary. But then they are kind of known for sort of documentaries that do kind of push the envelope, push the boundaries from time to time. But I was going to say if you wanted to watch this, you probably are better off by reading one of his books, reading My Word Is My Bond, or Tales from Tinseltown, or Abby on Top, one of the last books that he wrote.
That was the last one. It was called that because he was dying.
Yeah, this is it.
But it was released after his death.
It was posthumously. Yeah. But I think it is, that's a probably better source to go to. Yeah. But then if you're a Steve Coogan fan and delight in his impression of Roger Moore, then this is for you. But yeah, I just thought I kind of mentioned that trio there. But I think of the best of them, Superman's probably the better biopic, and I cannot recommend, aside from Wicked, Made in England is probably like my film of the year. Even though it's just Scorsese talking down the camera at you saying how much he loves Powell and Pressburger, you'll come away just feeling, oh my god, I must see all their films.
That's what a good doc should do, isn't it?
It fills you with that passion. It's very simply made, and I really hope it gets a better UK release over here. I was lucky to try and see it about 3 times. It's fantastic each time. And yeah, I can highly recommend it. But yeah, Superman.
For reasons of time, I'm going to cover 3 films almost together now and just jump in on what you've seen, covering them together because they're all kind of loosely in the horror genre, although one is very debatably that. I'm speaking of Speak No Evil, The Substance, and Heretic.
I really wanted to see The Substance, but I missed it. I'm
Okay.
not great when it comes to body horror, but I
Very
really
quick
wanted to see it.
background. Speak No Evil is a remake of like a Danish film, I think it is.
Mhm.
And the original author of it, or the original director, was not very happy with the remake because it goes for a happier ending. Let's put it this way. It's more nihilistic, the original one. I'm going to say nothing more than look it up for yourselves and just read a premise. Don't ruin the plot for yourself. It's a couple that meet another couple on holiday with two kids. One of the kids is...
Oh, this is the James McAvoy film,
Sorry,
isn't it?
they've got a boy, and the boy is mute, or he can barely speak, and he seems troubled in some way, and they make friends, and then they're invited down to Devon, I think it is, to spend like a weekend with them, and he claims he's adopted, but things aren't right. So James McAvoy and his wife and this boy, something is not right, and you've got Scoot McNairy and his wife, who's played by the one who was in Terminator Dark Fate. What's her name? The one from Terminator Dark Fate. Although she looks a lot more feminine than she did in that. She's really good in it. And it's just they're on this farm and something isn't right, and we don't know what, and what this boy's trying to tell them. Highly recommended. If I'd seen the original first, maybe I'd have the same problem with the ending, but I don't, because I only saw this version. So that's my thoughts on that. Heretic is kind of
Do you
similar.
know what the ending is, Dave, of the original?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I will say, like, I mean, I've only seen this version, not the original, but I've read it up, and it just seems like, quite grim in comparison. But
yeah, it does. It does. It's the sort of not apocalyptic literally, but it's like the apocalyptic ending, but the burn it all down ending. So that there was that, and of a similar sort of tone was Heretic, and this is Hugh Grant, who's become quite the character actor in the sort of second act of his career.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that he's getting like the recognition that he deserves.
Well, he said first off he didn't really like playing romantic leading men, but secondly he said I've aged out of it anyway.
Yes, I can play these more villainous roles.
A couple of Mormons go and visit this guy at a house. They'd obviously canvass people in the street as a bit like Jehovah's Witnesses. They are a sort of can't think of the word for it now. Proselytizing, is it? They basically spread the word.
Sorry, it's Mackenzie Davis. Just to
Mackenzie Davis, who's really good in it, and I can't believe it's the same woman because she barely looked female in that film, but she looks really feminine and nice in this. But they're all really good in it, and Scoot McNairy's really good in it as well. And it's just creepy and really good. Heretic is similar in its way in that it's about going to the house of someone you don't know whether to trust. He has obviously bumped into them earlier on the street or something. We don't see that, and expressed an interest in the Mormon church. So they go around to share material and talk to them. And all of a sudden they're starting to get the feel they're locked in. And his unseen wife is in another room making a pie. And very early in the film, you find out that smells from a candle. So they're being misled, but they don't know to what end. And it's quite a good treatise on religion, actually. Just even if you are religious, my wife is religious. She sat next to me and understood it and accepted it just fine. That it postulates what religion is about and how all religions are copies of earlier things. It's really good. And that's all I really want to say about that. And you guys can come in on all of this in a minute. And the final...
Sorry, go on. I'll let you finish.
I'll just quickly finish on The Substance. It completely fluffs its third act, but the first two acts of it are fascinating. Demi Moore's just won literally the first acting award of her entire career.
Amazing.
And Margaret Qualley is turning into quite the actress as well.
I kind of feel like these last couple of years have been really strong for sort of female leads, like horror movies as well. It's incredible, really incredible.
You guys can talk about what you have and haven't seen of these, because I'm sure everyone's heard of The Substance. I would just say I really liked it. Think it fluffed its ending a bit, but that's those three films.
Now I haven't seen it. Really want to though, because I keep hearing.
Yeah, same.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard so many good things about it. I'm so glad that Demi Moore's kind of won for that as well, but especially because of sort of various like Hitchcockian elements as well.
It's a vanity-free performance as well. Now, in her defence, she's still really attractive anyway. She's in her 60s and doesn't look it, so there is like nudity from her in this, but it's all in surface of the plot. It's not filmed salaciously in any way at all. But you think, what a vanity-free performance from a woman who was once paid a world record fee to like appear in striptease and was like the sex symbol of her time, even though that didn't do a hell of a lot for me. The other thing, and it's a small point, and again, I don't mean to sound salacious, but back in the time she did striptease, she definitely had like breast augmentation and things like that. And now she doesn't look, she looks more natural now. I don't know if she's had all that sort of reversed, but she just gives a completely vanity-free performance, and it's very, very good. And Margaret Qualley is just it's a ballsy performance from a different perspective, in that it's just absolutely overwhelming confidence.
Yeah, the trailers do look amazing, but I need to. I'm very squeamish when it does come to body horror, so I need to kind of get over that. Really,
places it is a little bit grim.
Yeah,
in places. Yeah.
Right, I saw a trailer for it when I went to go see Trap, and I was like, ooh. And then
the trailer's pretty accurate for what you're going to see.
I was like, oh, and repulsed at the same time.
It is a bit repulsive in places, but you should enjoy it.
But yeah, I need to check it out. Really, it looks like the way it's shot and the way it looks looks absolutely phenomenal. I'm glad she's getting accolades for it.
Did either of you see the other two?
No.
I saw Speak No Evil.
Yeah.
Oh.
And what did you think?
Kind of similar to, I thought it was fine. I thought McAvoy was great in it. Actually, no, I thought most of the cast was great in it. It's quite sort of tense, but again, I think the problem, I think my problem is I kind of knew the original ending going in.
Of course.
So I was like, okay, and then it just felt exactly kind of what it is, just like it felt like a decent horror, but without any sort of real teeth. I'm not saying I would have probably preferred the original ending, so to speak.
This ending works if you'd not seen the original. It doesn't. It's not, frankly, my dear, let's get married. It's not that. It's not some silly like let's graft a nice ending on. It works in the film.
But you are like, if you're wondering like, well, where's that extra kick in the ribs that you would necessarily get. So speaking of which, it reminds me of of a horror film that does have a little nasty little slight sting in the tail at the end. Smile 2. Has anyone seen Smile 2?
No, I missed that one.
I saw the first one. I didn't see the second one.
It's my opinion, it's better than the first film.
First one didn't do masses for me.
No,
but I willing to give the second one a try.
I must admit, I don't know why, but I seem to have given horror like a wide berth this year. Apologies.
This one's different. I think it's got a better central performance. It plays a lot more with the premise. Like it proper plays with distorting reality. Like, with where you kind of you see things from the not as a first person kind of thing, but you basically follow the lead lead girl in it. I forgot her name. Naomi Scott.
Oh, okay.
And she's basically like a huge like sort of pop star kind of Taylor Swift, Billie Eilish type. And he's got like history of substance abuse and had a car crash with a fiance.
I'm not sure I remember. Oh yeah. No, I recognise her.
So she has a lot of baggage, but it plays a lot more of the premise, of the demon possession and just altering reality, and the fact that she's a pop star having to meet other people and deal with all these like sort of other little pressures. Is a nice little angle, and it has a little sting in its tail at the end, I'll say, which I'm not sure. I mean, it would suggest it's setting up a third one, but I personally wouldn't. I would leave it there. What else could I say? Horrors. So there's two summers. I found there's a few films that I've kind of seen fairly sort of connectedly together. Immaculate.
I heard that was really good. I wanted to see it, but I missed it.
Yeah. Well, there's two. There's Immaculate, and there's the First Omen.
Another one I wanted to see, but I missed it.
Both decent. Now, I think First Omen works better as a horror film, but falls apart when you could consider it with the Omen series. So
is it more of a prequel, or?
Yes, so the First Omen is a prequel to like the Omen.
Okay, sorry.
So it's the basic premise is basically like this is the
Yeah.
birth of the omen, and it ties into sort of.
Right.
But then,
As it says on the tin.
but
Sorry.
yeah, they're all kind of similar. But the Immaculate is a bit different. I think I preferred Immaculate. It's a bit more simple, sort of, less theatrics, but in a manner of speaking. But and I kind of resent the first Omen a little bit more because it kind of it kind of ruins the sort of the first sort of the Omen for me a little bit. It's just kind of hang on, but that doesn't make sense when you tie it with the first Omen. I mean, it's fine if you're going to sort of just do a complete remake kind of thing, but like it doesn't quite work because spoilers. It's on Disney Plus anyway, so you can watch it.
Is it really violent though?
It does have a few sort of. It's really good at getting into like the aesthetic of the original Omen films, as in that kind of like a looming like, when you see a death, it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, they're quite visceral, like in the original film, they are quite visceral, like Patrick Troughton being speared.
Yeah, it's quite good at and opens with something similar as well. It's quite good at building that atmosphere, that tension. But again, my main issue was because the plot is basically essentially like the Catholic Church or the members of the Catholic Church who are facilitating this, who are basically sort of like we're gonna sort of like raise birth of the Antichrist because then that will make people believe in God again. It's like well, that it's like okay, but by doing that they're like doing it over and over again. That they're like sort of getting like sort of like they're basically sort of just breeding all these kind of like would be kind of omen kind of type things, and they all automatically have like the 666 like birthmark. It's like I'm sorry, that just doesn't work. that just falls apart for me right there. And the fact that when you think about the original Omen, they were actual Satanists, and if they were all sort of corrupt Catholic people, not Satanists, there would be a point where like maybe this Antichrist thing's gone a bit too far. Do you know what I mean? I just think it didn't work for me. So, but as a horror film, it was good. Other horror film, Longlegs. Anyone seen Longlegs?
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
What do you think?
I can't believe I left that off my list. Oh my god.
It got very well acclaimed.
It did, yeah, very sort of good reviews. I think mainly for Nick Cage's absolute bonkers performance. But I didn't recognise him under that mound of makeup. He looks completely different. But yeah, he gives like suitably demented performance, definitely. But I kind of get the impression that this film was kind of bringing Oz Perkins really into the mainstream. Well, not kind of into the mainstream, but just getting him like better recognition. Obviously, he's kind of been slowly making his career. Obviously, the son of Tony Perkins, obviously. So when your dad is Norman Bates, oh my god, you've got such a big sort of not big shoes to fill, but you've kind of got a career to sort of carve out for yourself. But so yeah, he sort of made these really fantastic kind of quite indie, low budget kind of horror movies as well. So I kind of feel like with this and films like Black Coat's Daughter, for example, I kind of feel like it's kind of I honestly bring him to the mainstream, but that's not what I mean. Gaining a better recognition as a horror director. Obviously, you've got The Monkey coming out, so his adaptation of the Stephen King novel, short story, coming out later on this year, like February, March time, like coming soon, which seem to be twisted. But yeah, I think it's really good. I got very much, he kind of gave this sort of 90s police procedural kind of vibe, so like Silence of the Lambs, for example, that sort of thing. And like I've read sort of interviews with him, and the way that he kind of makes his films, he kind of makes them all about himself, about his family. So this was obviously a kind of deal of obviously his dad and how he dealt with AIDS and things like that, for example, and how they basically hid that from him and his brother Elvis. He's a famous musician. Check out his band Ash Wednesday, really fantastic. Huge fan, as if you can't tell. It's just and I think that's kind of how they sort of internalise that as well, and that's kind of very shown through like the female lead, the detective in this film. but yeah, it's very gory. Some deaths are like really quite gruesome. And there's just like one of his trademarks as a filmmaker is kind of this really pervading sense of dread through every single kind of frame, really. And yeah, I just kind of I don't know if you can enjoy this film. I think this film, if you can enjoy it. But yeah, I found it terrifying, but also had a good time, if that makes sense. Yeah, I've kind of largely avoided horror this year. I don't. As I get older, I find I'm a lot more squeamish. And I thought, well, it's Oz Perkins, so I'm gonna go see it. There's a few scenes where I sort of had to look away a little bit, but no, I find it to be quite good, actually. But I think Nick Cage's performance does kind of take you out of the movie at times. It's kind of suitably bizarre, and plus under an amount of makeup as well. It's just that the whole thing's just very bizarre. But I think to his pedigree, you know, he does very well to kind of elicit this kind of bonkers performance out of him. So he is quite terrifying, actually, in more ways than one. But yeah, I enjoyed it. If you can enjoy this kind of film.
I thought Nicolas Cage was just not believable at all.
No, I kind of feel like I'm really at the opposite end here. I'm not on trend with what people should like. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's fine. Yeah, other opinions are available. But no. I mean, again, this is another thing where I really wanted to like it, and there was a lot of things I did like about it. But you know, I thought I found out to me it was wanting a little bit, and I just thought it was just silly. It was just kind of like, why? I always thought it's like doing like a really bad Michael Jackson impression.
It was a little bit like that, wasn't it? I think the makeup really kind of gave it that sort of edge. It did, because he had like a really quite bleached makeup, like blonde hair as well, and he had like obviously a fake nose and a fake chin, and it just looks a bit bizarre, quite frankly. And this really high pitched voice as well. And you think, okay, what's he getting at there?
The other horror film, I double billed this with another film called A Violent Nature.
Oh, I wanted to see that, but no, I was like, I think I would be grossed out by it. But apparently, it was really good.
Yeah, it was okay, definitely.
Because it's all very much from that point of view, isn't it? Like, is it almost entirely?
Yes, pretty much.
Okay. Yeah, I probably will see that then.
It's from the point of view of like it's like Friday the 13th, but if you saw it from the point of view of Jason, of it's not Jason, but it's a Jason type sort of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, from the point of view of him, you see him, sort of just killed teenagers, up until I would say, the last few scenes. Which I won't say, but yeah, no, it's definitely worth checking out if you like your horror. What else? Anyone else got anything else they want to add? There was Gladiator 2.
I was going to say there's not too many left. But I'm going to have to try and cover them a few just fairly quickly. So let me just run through my list of what's left. The next one on the list we have talked about, thankfully, on another show briefly, I think, was Megalopolis. This was the Francis Ford Coppola film. Now, I read a biography of him written in about 2000, and it was talking about this film. He's been planning it for decades.
Didn't he sell half his vineyard or something to fund it?
Yeah, funded it himself. It looks it's also Adam Driver. It looks incredibly expensive.
He's had a good year this year, hasn't he, as well?
And it's a mess I couldn't take my eyes off.
It was terrible, but it looked great.
Yeah, no, it's a bit more than that. When it finished, it also coalesced into something that I kind of respected, even though you cannot deny what a mess it is. And it's really long. There's a lot wrong with it, but I can't say it wasn't fascinating. And it does sort of evoke that sort of Greco-Roman era as well. So yeah, lots to say about it that's positive, but I'm pretty sure if we did like a proper review of it, I would absolutely rip it to shreds. The next one, I think there's only 3 or 4 more I need to cover. Most of them we can do quite quickly. In fact, we'll do the very, very quick ones first. Carry On, I never actually finished. That's only launched. In fact, that may have launched.
Oh, that's a Netflix one.
Yeah.
No,
so that's fine.
Not Kenneth Williams Insight.
Red One, we've done a show on. Paddington in Peru, I'll just very quickly just cover to say I liked it. It's the weakest of the Paddington films. The strongest.
Yeah, I would kind of agree. It's still charming, but I would probably say of the 3, it's probably the weakest in the series.
It's them reaching for a plot, whereas the first 2 just felt very natural. So that leaves 3 to cover for me. The last one of the 3 we can cover really quickly, which is Gladiator 2, because we talked about that a couple
I
weeks ago.
didn't see it in the end.
But Chris talked about it. He was saying about the lead, and I don't know if we talked about it on air or on Messenger, actually.
I think it was on Messenger.
Yeah, you didn't mention it in the show.
Yeah.
I really, really liked it. Now, it is a retcon to make it happen, because there was nothing in the first film that said that was Maximus's son. But if you decide you can see that and you can read it, then I actually almost prefer this film, but with one caveat: the actual Gladiator is the least interesting element of it. Paul Mescal is not a leading man. He's just not. But if you take what's around him and the twins and Denzel and even some of the sort of action sequences, in some respects, I had a better time with it than the first film, which I've always considered slightly overrated. So it's superfluous, but it's actually really good at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, when Dave said he actually preferred it, the second one to the first one, I was like, I need to probably rewatch it, because it's not because I didn't sort of have a good time with it, because I did. It was like watching like a really dumbed down remake of it, of the first film. I think my main objection, which I kind of laugh at with it's not necessarily the retcon of it being Max's son, because that I can actually believe. That's like
it's not that difficult to actually do that in your head. You have to mess around with time frames as well, because the 2 boys were about the same age, and there's no way he was cheating on his wife from the first one.
Yeah.
But if you just do the little bit of mental gymnastics, and you don't have to do a lot. If you watch the first one,
you can buy it as like, yeah, there was always like chemistry, and they had a one-time thing.
If in the first one you said, I wouldn't be surprised if that was his son, and then went straight into the second one, they'd flow as 2 parts of the film. No problem at all.
I think the thing that sort of sells it to me is like the first Gladiator, and it even has it in the actual film. You had Russell Crowe there dying on the floor, telling like Connie Nielsen like he's safe, Rome's safe.
Yeah.
You know, as he's dying, it's like that he's achieved the things. The moment he dies, he sends him away. He's in danger. Rome just gets taken over by.
You did nothing there, did you, Bumbo? That was the bit that. But they must have filmed. Could it have been CG? Because it looks like they filmed it at the time. Because you had young Treat Williams as the young version of him, the boy from Unbreakable, isn't it?
Mm.
The film I watched in Cheltenham.
In Cheltenham.
So yeah.
But yeah, the last 2 to cover for me are, and I could do the first one quite quickly.
Joker, Folie à Deux. This filmmaker is so far as up his own ass, it's embarrassing.
I completely forgot to write that down.
Well, it's just
I didn't write that down either, actually.
He made the first film, thought it was a complete work of art when no one had tapped him on the shoulder and say, you do realise you've just made the king of comedy again, don't you? Right? And then he does this, and it's just so self-important.
I think because it contains musical numbers as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy music as well, and so I think some of the songs are okay, but I just kind of think it doesn't really work here, unfortunately.
He's a self-important filmmaker making a self-important film that when it finishes, it kicks the audience in the balls and going, he didn't want the Joker anyway.
I thought
the Warner Brothers style animation was okay at the start. That's all I got to say, really.
I mean, I've heard there's a lot of things left on the cutting room floor, so I don't know whether like there was a different movie.
Yeah. There's going to be an uncut version, not uncut, but like a director's version.
And none of it's thought through, because if he's not meant to be the Joker, then she can't be Harleen Quinzel, can she?
No.
It's an odd thing where it did feel like the actively, it was made by people who actively hated the first film and just wanted just to like. It's just like what? Yeah.
This guy forgets his own filmography. You know, he thinks he's like Scorsese or very.
It was like. It was literally as if like if you were to sit down and like, right, I'm going to do a sequel and then systematically just piss on the first film in any way I can, you'd make this film.
He succeeded, definitely. As I say, you can't really. It doesn't really deserve to be compared to the kind of comedy, unfortunately.
No, and the thing is, he has copied from two of the really iconic ones. But I just think like I don't know what this guy wants out of his career. Not Joaquin Phoenix, he's great in it, and particularly the
Oh, yeah,
courtroom.
he
stuff
does
is
a great
outstanding.
performance, as does
I mean,
Margaret, definitely.
everyone in it's fine. I think Lady Gaga is extraordinarily overrated, full stop. But she's okay in the film. She's okay. Yeah, well,
That's fine. I'm only joking. Don't worry. I'm only kidding.
She did A Star Is Born, and like her film version is actually better than Streisand's, but Streisand has got a far better voice. But anyway, no, she's fine in it. They're all fine in it. He's great in it, but it's just a self-important filmmaker. I just wish would shut up and fuck off.
Not a fan, Dave. Not a fan.
No, not really. I just think like this guy. He is the guy who made The Hangover, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, where did you get so important when you made
How did you get from point A to point B?
You made substandard adult comedies, and now you're like, I'm a great filmmaker. Fuck off.
Don't forget Road Trip, Dave. He did Road Trip.
Road Trip.
Oh no.
I mean, I'm all for people growing and changing, and there's a space for films like that.
He's gone backwards.
But he's just. I just find him insufferable, and the stuff he was talking about after this film doesn't need to exist. It adds nothing. In fact, it pisses on the first film, exactly like Chris has said. It's overlong, it's self-important, and he's like, let's make it a musical. And it's like, he thinks
how else can you ruin the memory of the original?
He thinks he's a creative genius, and the musical elements of it are shite. I don't mean they're poorly performed. I mean, none of the songs are any good.
It just didn't need to be there, totally.
And the last one for me, I've taken these all out of order, but the very last one, because we are racing up towards 3 hours, is Venom, the final Venom film.
I completely forgot about that as well.
Yeah, I didn't see that either, unfortunately.
No, amazingly, I can remember this one. It's a bit much. It feels like they thought they could continue the universe, but they were pushing their luck with Tom Hardy. They wouldn't get him again. So I think they were trying to sort of keep the whole symbiont world going as something. And of course, because the whole universe has died now, it's not going to happen. It had Juno Temple in it. I was watching Juno Temple in something a day or two ago. What was I watching her in? Thanks for that. That's very helpful.
Sorry, Dave.
I was watching her in something because when she was in The Dark Knight Rises, she was playing a lot younger.
Belief.
Yes. So I'm always it's belief. But she was born in 1989, so she was like 20 odd when she did The Dark Knight Rises. But she looks like a teenager, so I'm always shocked she's like well into her 30s.
Is it a recent thing, or she was in Killer Joe, Ted Lasso, Fargo?
Ted Lasso. I've been watching Ted Lasso. And again, totally different energy to it. But she was also in The Offer, the film about the making of The Godfather.
She's 35.
Yeah, that's my point.
Gee.
And it's like she sort of looks it in Venom, and I don't mean that in a negative way, by the way. I'm just saying you can believe it in that. But then you go and watch her in Ted Lasso, which is only about 4 years old, and she looks about, I mean, she says she's like 37 or something. No, she says she's 30 there, which would be accurate. But yeah, she's a bit timeless. But she's okay in it. It's just a series that sort of outstayed its welcome. They've tried to do a little bit more with it in this episode, if you like, with the whole sort of symbiote. And I probably, if you told me no, I have to watch one of them again, I might choose this one. But it's not been amazing, has it, for 3 entries? That's run over a certain number of years now.
No, I mean, I didn't mind it. I thought it was a weaker one out of the two, but I haven't watched the.
I'm struggling to remember the first two, to be honest with you. Now, the first one was certainly shot a bit awkwardly in that, like, they had a lot of them fighting at night with substandard CG, and you couldn't tell what was going on. The second one, they varied the color schemes a bit more and the lighting in this one, so maybe it's better made. I don't know, but that's it for 2024 from me. Year ahead, we've got a few new ones we'll almost certainly cover. We got the final Mission Impossible film. I don't know about Marvel because I'm sort of tempted with the Fantastic Four, but not as part of that series, so I don't know. But we have a Superman film. So,
yes, that'll be another big one, won't it? We'll have Karate Kid.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, another one.
The universe is reunited at last.
At long last.
Which means, yeah, the remake of the Karate Kid, which was really the Kung Fu Kid, is now canon with the Karate Kid.
It's kind of come full circle, really, hasn't it?
It is. I'll be interested to find, for anyone who's seen the TV show, the Karate Kid TV show. What's it called?
Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai. Whether you need it for this film. Because I'll probably go and see it, and I've not watched any Cobra Kai, and I'm not interested enough to do so. The Karate Kid to me is a knockoff, a Rocky knockoff. That's it. I'd rather watch the original. But all right, okay. What else is coming out this year? Let's have a look. There was a few things I was looking for. 2025 cinema releases UK.
So you got Captain America. That's out. Oh, Jurassic World.
Another Jurassic Park movie.
Yeah, but we'll throw that onto a Jurassic Park series later down the line, so we won't be doing that now. It's odd with odd Marvel ones, though, because we did the whole series, so it seems really odd to just jump in and cherry pick. So I don't know. On that. I'm quite open to it. There's another Avatar film later in the year, and given the fourth Avatar film won't be till 2029, I'd quite happily do the 3 Avatar films.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed The Way of Water there. That was really good.
There's a Tron film coming out?
There is a Tron film, Tron Ares, yeah. And I think it may be Daft Punk again.
We'll have to get...
is it live action? Not like...
We'll have to get Simon Drake on for that one.
Yeah. There is another Wolfman film. I think that may be the same guy who did The Invisible Man.
Yeah, James Wan.
Mortal Kombat 2.
No, not James Wan. No. Who made The Invisible Man?
Oh, sorry, I misheard
you. Same guy, Lee Wannell. Same guy who did Upgrade.
Saw, behind the Saw films.
Edgar Wright's Running Man is due out.
Yep.
That might be cool for one-off. But certainly in terms of series we've done before, or short series, I'm quite happy to interrupt and do. I'm quite happy to do the Avatar series. We will tack on Mission Impossible. We will tack Superman onto our Superman series. I can't second guess what the DCU will be. So rather than wait for that, we'll just tack it on with our sort of Superman films. That's all Ballerina.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have we ever done
Final Destination film as well?
Did we do
looking forward to that one.
Did we do the John Wick films? I can't remember.
Yes, we did.
We did.
We can throw Ballerina onto that one.
Yep, a spin-off coming.
All right, excellent. All right, that's it from me, folks. As for social media, you can find me at the Pasty Kid 1976 on Twitter. You can find me at the Pasty Kid on Blue Sky.
Yeah, we've got Blue Sky account, haven't we?
We're on the Blue Sky now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yes, expect us to talk.
Not that I'm really on much social media these days, anyway.
No, but it's there as an option, and lots of our listeners do use it now.
Yeah, you can find us on there. I mean, I'm not on there, but Dave, you are on there, and then we are on there. Do expect us to talk on Blue Sky, and you'll find us.
I mean, just as an aside on the benefits of the two, forget the politics for a minute. I'm just talking about the forum and sort of interacting with it. Twitter is still better for finding things out because you've got trending, and you can search things. Whereas if you try and use the search function in Blue Sky, it's all about finding people.
It's kind of how Twitter used to be like back in the early days.
So yeah, if you need to find out something, go to Twitter. If you want a nice chat with nice people, at the moment, Blue Sky is a little bit more pleasant.
Yes,
but I'm still using Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still on Twitter/X. Not that I tweet or post much anyway these days, but
when you do, it's impactful.
Yeah.
You are.
Thank you.
We wait for him like we wait for Commodus to put the thumb up or down.
Yeah.
He's posted. What's he said?
We hang on every word.
Maybe I'll start posting a lot more then. Maybe. I might do. I might do random reviews of things I've watched and go Twitter review. But yeah, you can find me on there. You can find all
BBC Northwest Tonight. Excellent news. Oh, you meant like films and stuff. All right, yeah.
Well, I could do that. Yeah, but you can find all the odd episodes on Podbean. You can just search for it, and any podcast engine you care to use, we're there.
Are they classed as engines?
I don't know.
It's just a platform, isn't it? I think.
Mechanisms?
Machines.
Wherever you go to your podcasts, I don't know.
Podcatchers. Your podcatcher of choice.
Yeah.
Your pod facility.
Yes.
I remember saying to somebody once, back years ago, where we had all our music in physical form, and he had he bought all these separates from Richer Sounds, which for the mid-90s were pretty good. And I went to say, do you have a record player?
and I could not think of the words record player. So I paused for ages and then asked him if he had a vinyl facility, and he still laughs at me about that. Right.
He still stood there confused.
Yeah, he's probably still sat there in a halls of residence, aged nearly 50, trying to figure it out.
What would vinyl facility be? What would that even be for?
Yeah.
What would you do there? What would you do with it?
Have you got a vinyl facility?
Speaking of still being there, 28 years later. That's no film to look out for.
Oh yes, that's coming out. Yeah.
Yeah, although we haven't done the original 3 of those, so again, that would be a down the line maybe. I really like the first one. I wasn't so bothered by the sequels. Now, of course, the other thing is the Fast Zombies has been done to death since. It was amazing.
Yeah, I've been to see.
The rage
really
fire.
impactful upon like zombie movies. So
And even now, apart from him on the bridge in London, which is obviously the iconic shot.
That's the iconic scene, isn't it?
The bit I always remember is Brendan Gleeson getting the sort of drop blood into his eye.
Oh.
That's a horrible but a touching sequence at the same time because he knows it's happened, so he's trying to warn everyone off.
Yeah.
All right, where else can we be found before we sign off?
You can drop us an email, expectustotalk@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Do You Expect Us to Talk? We live on YouTube. All our shows can be found there. Head over to YouTube, type in Do You Expect Us to Talk? Wherever you get your podcatchers, your podcast of choice, Podbean, Podbay, Apple Music. You can find us there.
Apple Music?
Apple Music.
You have to say it with a questioning tone at the end. That's how you pronounce it.
Ivan Burgundy. No,
Apple TV Plus?
I usually have a script in front of me, but I haven't tonight, so that's why I'm sounding like I'm Ron Burgundy. But yes, wherever you find your podcatchers, rate us, review us, like us, and share us. Helps us to attract more listeners and rank higher up the algorithms. So that's been our review of 2024. Looking forward to what 2025 has in store. Looking forward to reviewing this year's slated movies in another 12 months.
A few more entries, as we said, for existing series, and I think we will commit, even if we're still doing Hitchcock, because we don't record that fast. Whatever we're doing at the time, we will stop and do Avatar in December. I'll just say good night. We've already announced our next one, that we're back to Hitchcock next. So see you next time, folks.
Yeah.
We will return.
Yes, with Saboteur.
Saboteur?
Saboteur.
Good night, folks.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.